Hello, welcome. Welcome to my stream. I'm just gonna be finishing up this drawing and painting it, and we'll go from there. So yeah, welcome. You can follow me on my social media links on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Patreon, all that good stuff. Links in the bio. All right, enjoy. Let's go. I'm also gonna be watching or listening to a podcast as I'm drawing. Yeah, let's go and enjoy.
I think Tiger wants to do my job.
Oh, okay, he's sitting on me.
I think he wants your job too.
Yeah, I think he said, actually, I think I could do it better. So elegant. That was so cute.
A quack quack.
Welcome. No, that's not. There's a Chinese billionaire. There's a Chinese gaming billionaire named Bubby. No, actually, though, okay? But we're going to call him Bobo because his name is Shu Bo. Shu Bo. Bobo, okay? And I don't make the rules. Billionaire Bobo has a life-changing offer for all of us peasants. He is offering us the chance to win $1.4 million. He's practically giving away $1 million at this point. All you have to do is go on a singular date with this woman named Tong. You get to sit in front of a beautiful girl, chit chat over steak, and then walk home 7 figures richer. Why would anybody not take the deal? What's the freaking catch here?
I wouldn't take the deal. Not for $1 million.
$2?
No.
$2? The catch is, Tang is the girlfriend of the billionaire. He's like, if you go on a date with my girlfriend, the mother of my children, I will give you $1.4 million. This is getting so strange. What the fork is going on? Is this billionaire trying to sit in the hotel chair or what? Why does he want to pay a strong, muscular, burly man $1.4 million to take his girl out on a date?
What's the catch?
The catch is, he says, you can't. There is absolutely nothing you can do to make her want to go on a date with you. You could be an even richer billionaire, and Tang would still say no. Billionaire boy, Bobo, is flaunting to the world that he is indeed the most loyal girlfriend there ever was. He goes on to Weibo, the Chinese Twitter, to post,
if any man could have a private dinner date with my Tong, I'd give you $1.4 million. Before me, Tong used to ignore all these good-for-nothing pretty boys, and it's even less likely now. She despises incompetent men the most. She would not betray me, just as I would not betray her.
I guess we could all play that game.
This is
70 on a day, I'll give you $10 billion.
This is the eat the rich triple threat. Not only do you get to eat the rich, you get to eat $1 million of his money, but you also get to eat the rich's girlfriend, which if you're like, this is so dumb, why would she date anybody else? She's literally dating a billionaire. Maybe this gives you some context. That's the catch. Here's your advantage. This is how billionaire Bobo talks about his girlfriend.
At first, my girlfriend was not good enough for me because she was not a virgin. She was not untouched. But because she was persistent, I accepted and I slowly started falling for her.
That's their love story.
What?
That is his version of their love story. Also, Bobo and Tang are in an open relationship where only Bobo is open. Tang is closed, meaning Bobo the billionaire openly sleeps with other women and Tang is loyal. Because he likes having his woman at home that he says is stable, clean, and disease-free. And she gets no money out of their relationship. In the past 2 years, he has only ever spent $14,000 on her in allowance.
Okay, so here's the real question though. How old is he?
He's old.
He's old?
Like 30.
30?
What?
No, I'm just kidding. I think he's probably 40. I said 30.
40 is still young,
so
though.
offended.
So young.
Yeah, no, it's
40
really
is still
young.
young.
And he's a self-made billionaire. Well, he calls himself a self-made billionaire.
Okay.
Technically, by definition, I guess he could be. Anyway, he does not spend a ton of money on her, $14,000. And she will take some of that $14,000 and buy him luxury goods. Buy the
But here's the
billionaire
catch, though.
luxury goods. This is a billionaire we're talking about. He could buy her.
Even though he doesn't spend that much money on her, all the benefits of being with him, like, living in that probably a nice house and all that stuff, does she really need money? I don't know. That's just me saying. Seems like a good deal.
Her a Chanel bag. He could buy her a fucking Lamborghini every day, and I don't think that he nor his accountant would notice.
All right.
Now, I feel like everybody has a chance because there's got to be better people out there than.
Now, okay, I just added a little jewelry because I just need to add a little something there. I think now I'm going to start painting it. Yeah. They're painting this. Okay, let's keep going.
Bobo, $1 billion or not. That's crazy. People are trying. They're putting their whole backs into it. They want $1.4 million. I don't even want to know the kind of DMs this billionaire's girlfriend Tong is getting right now. But people tried.
Now, I'm not sure if I'm reading too much smut.
But I thought an even richer, nicer billionaire was going to come in and sweep her off her feet. Like a business rival would come in and sweep her off her feet.
That would be a crazy K-drama.
Oh,
2 billionaire.
one bet and one bed.
One bed.
What?
And they fall in love.
The 2 billionaires? I would definitely watch that. I would read that. You know what? I'm going to write that. But no, she actually does not go on a single date with any of the contenders. She is loyal. The billionaire boyfriend is unfortunately right for a little while.
By the way, real question. Stephanie wants to know if she write a smut, would you guys read it?
If I write some kinky, nasty smut, would you read it?
Let me know. Or would you be like, no, that's too weird?
But like, weird is good, no?
So this bet is posted online by the billionaire. News breaks a little while later. Billionaire boy is pissed. His loyal, dedicated, does not have eyes for anybody else girlfriend, the mother of his children, has run away with $113 million. This girl, the one he was ready to bet $1 million on,
Damn.
pockets over $100 million and is never coming back.
Damn.
At first, everybody is reading up on this story and they don't like the girlfriend. She's a gold digger. You can't just take that kind of money and run. Yeah, you can. I'm just kidding. Don't commit crimes. But doesn't matter if he's worth $1 billion. That's insane. But then suddenly, when netizens find out what kind of relationship they had, suddenly they keep telling her, wait, do it again. Okay?
What?
Do it again and maybe a little more this time.
Wow. This is so juicy. I gotta take off my pants.
What?
Wait, what?
Guys, he went to take off his pants. Now, before we get into it, I just want to take a moment and appreciate my iPad for what she goes through for all the research that I do for these types of cases. I was on some shady websites that pop up like 50,000 different ads at the same time, and I had no idea what's going on. What is this text? What is this ad? It's all fusing together, and it was acting like Bobo. The more the merrier. That's what it thought. But the only reason that I'm powering through research is thanks to my Opera browser. Opera is truly a game changer, my best friend. She is built to be faster, safer, and smarter than default browsers. And she makes me feel safe when I'm browsing, like the cruel, merciless land of foreign online articles. I literally call Opera she because I feel like she's a girl that just gets me. Technically, Aria is my real bestie. Okay, Aria is an AI built in Opera that helps me all the time. Aria can instantly translate articles from any language. The freaking summarizing of articles, game changer. And the whole time that you're browsing, you have an easily accessible chat box with Aria on the sidebar. So for example, sometimes I'll be reading through a long article and a question pops up in my head, but I don't feel like opening a whole new tab just to Google search that question. Aria will answer my question for me. It's crazy. It's like having an assistant.
All right,
She's
let's
right there.
start
I don't even
painting
have to
this.
leave the page. Plus, Aria is connected to the web and provides real-time information, so the answers she gives you aren't going to be based off of 3
All right, we're gonna start painting now. Add a little details. Don't go all out. Let's start adding the colors. I think I want to hear true crime more than gossip. We're gonna change the audio. Hope that's okay. I like those true crime doc stuff we got here.
There's always a reason.
Yeah. Alright, just changing the audio. I'll play music, but every time I try to play any music, even sometimes it says copyright free, there's always a copyright strikes. Like, what can I play when I'm drawing or painting? Kind of sucks though, but I find podcasts seem to be better because there's not less random music, so it helps.
little town. They call it Little Japan. It's a gated community, but it kind of functions like a gated neighborhood. Each
Okay.
house inside is identical. They're made of concrete, surrounded by pine trees. You can see parts of a river peeking through the woods, but more importantly, beyond that, you can see this massive gate peeking through the tree line. It's more like a wall. It's unclear if they're keeping someone out or keeping everybody in. There's patches of garden where there's these bright flowers that are blooming. I mean, it's like a mini paradise. The buildings, the houses, they each have several rooms. There's even a gathering building for everyone in the neighborhood to hang out in. All the residents, if they want to get together, they have an entire building dedicated for dining, meeting. They have a movie theater, a massive sauna house, a library. Each house is equipped with massive, beautiful chandeliers in every single room, heated floors, and each house has almost the same identical pieces of artwork hanging in every single room. They're completely isolated away from the rest of the world. They have everything they need inside this gated neighborhood. There's dedicated buildings for staff members on the outskirts of this neighborhood. They have a team of housekeepers for the families within the gates. They do the laundry, they make the beds, they clean the entire house for all the houses in here. There's private chefs, private chauffeurs lined up, waiting in like a fleet of Mercedes Benzes.
Wow,
There's
must be
private
nice.
tutors, private teachers for the children within the gates. They have an electrician full time, just making sure the backup generator is on in case the power goes out.
How many houses?
9 families. That's it. On staff, they also have a nurse, a doctor, a nursery teacher for any young children that might be born within the 9 families. There's helpers tending to every single whim. Everyone in that community has a purpose, which is to serve the 9 families that live within the gates. 9 families, isolated inside this gated community. I mean, the private chefs cook them 3 meals a day. On the weekends, sometimes the wives will actually let the chefs go rest in their quarters because one of their favorite activities is attempting to bake. That's what they do for fun. Not out of necessity, but for fun. It's like a royal family with more staff members tending to their needs than there are family members. It's a lot. There's even this whole shop, like a little store with a clerk, a full-time clerk that manages the stocking of the shelves, but nobody pays. The residents walk in, do their grocery shopping, and walk out. If there's something that they want that's not in the store, they just let the clerk know. Hey, I need this next week.
I guess when you're rich, you can create your own perfect world. That seems like a perfect world.
This sounds like WandaVision, the fake town.
Yes!
Exactly.
And within a few days, the items are delivered. It's like a paradise. The only stipulation, the only rule is that the 9 families, if they want to leave their little palatial residence using one of the cars and the drivers, they have to get permission. They call it Little
Cult.
Japan because the
That's a
9
cult.
families inside this little town are Japanese. But it exists maybe 40 minutes outside the capital of North Korea.
It's in North Korea.
It's in North Korea. The residents in the gates are not Japanese or North Korean royalty. They're not even diplomats. They're not politically powerful. They are plane hijackers. They hijacked a plane and flew it into North Korea, and now they are considered the Kim family's secret weapon. We would like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support the nonprofit Alight. 120 million people face displacement due to conflict that has taken their home countries hostage, most notably the civilians of Ukraine, Sudan, and Gaza. Alight serves people who face the arduous journey of displacement through services and programs that are constantly evolving to address their needs. Each year, they serve 3.5 million people from over 20 different countries. So as always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. And with that being said, let's get into it. Tokyo University is considered one of the most prestigious institutions in Japan. Inside one of the classrooms on campus, there's something weird happening. I mean, class is not in session. There is no lecture to be had, but the door is closed, locked. The lights are on inside. 9 guys are sweating. They're rearranging the classroom. Okay, we need 2 rows of 3. So 3 chairs to my left, 3 chairs to my right, and make rows out of it. Okay, so I want like 20 rows. Keep the center empty so we can walk up and down like some sort of aisle. It's an odd mix of people in this classroom. The oldest is 27 years old. The youngest is not even old enough to attend Tokyo University. He's 16 years old. He's in high school. Some of them are university students. Others graduated already. One of them has long hair and is a bassist for a psychedelic rock band. He plays the bass for this pretty famous rock band. They're not even like underground. It's a very interesting, oddball mix of people. But even weirder than that is the fact that none of them know each other's real names or
crazy.
ages.
Like Money Heist.
Yes, they agreed it would be best if they only went by their pseudonyms, fake names that they all picked out for themselves when they first got together as a group. Once the chairs are set up just the way they need, class
All right,
is
just
in
saving real
session.
quick.
Okay, who's
Let's keep
gonna walk
going.
down the aisle first? They all pull out their knives. The chairs are lined up to look like the inside of an airplane. This is how they're gonna practice hijacking the plane and flying it off course into Cuba.
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 I thought it was North Korea.
Cuba. And the captain is flying over Mount Fuji. We're on the plane now. The captain is staring at this young guy in the cockpit.
Wait, we're on the plane or we're in the classroom?
No, we're in the plane now.
Oh.
They practice like 2 times. Okay, the captain is flying over Mount Fuji and he's staring at the young guy in the cockpit and the energy is just very tense. He tells him, unfortunately, that's not happening. What do you mean that's not happening? I mean, I'm not gonna fly to Cuba. I cannot do that. You can't just change the course and expect it to work. You can't go from having point A being a city in Japan, point B being another city in Japan, and suddenly you want to fly to Cuba. Do you know what type of aircraft this even is? It was a Boeing 727. Even the longer range versions of this plane have a maximum range of only flying about, maybe under perfect weather conditions, about 3,100 miles. 3,100 miles. The distance from Japan to Cuba is closer to 7,400 miles.
So only halfway.
Yeah, and they would need to make multiple stops to refuel because that's under perfect weather conditions. So depending on the wind conditions, the route that's taken, they would have to stop a minimum of 2 to 3 times to refuel. Is that what you guys want to do right now? Otherwise, we're not getting to Cuba. The plane is going to literally drop into the ocean, into the water, because it's going to run out of gas. Is that what you want? The captain is looking at the 9 college-aged guys with samurai swords standing on the plane 40,000 feet in the air. And nothing is going according to their plan. Not a single one of them considered all of this when they boarded the plane. This was not part of the plan. They had thought through everything else before all of this, what they were going to wear. They're all dressed very smartly with briefcases of explosives with them. They've got knives, pipe bombs, samurai swords, pistols. I mean, none of them booked their tickets together because they thought that would be suspicious. They only sat nearby one another. None of them spoke to each other getting on the plane prior to boarding. Nothing. They all got on the plane and waited patiently for the signal. 20 minutes into the flight. Ding! The fasten seatbelt sign has been turned off. The flight attendants are getting ready to hand out heated towels to the passengers, and a man near the front of the plane gets up from his seat, and it looks like he's been waiting for this moment. Maybe he's trying to use the restroom. He walks to the very front of the aisle, and instead of opening the door to the restroom, he turns around to stare at the passengers and slowly pulls out this shiny, glimmering, reflecting stick. It's a samurai sword.
From where?
Inside of his trench coat. Stay calm,
How do you
and
get
I
that
will let you
through?
live. Some people scream. Others in the back, they don't even know what's going on. They don't even hear this guy. So some of them are likely thinking, 120 people, one guy, we can knock this guy out, samurai sword or not. Let's just tackle him. But before they can even do that, one by one, more men start standing up from different parts of the plane, and they're all holding samurai swords, knives, pipe bombs. In total, there are 9 of them, and just something in their eyes, you don't want to test them. They look very, very serious. They look like they got a plan. And that plan is now completely falling apart when the captain and the co-pilot are telling the hijackers, Cuba is not happening unless you want to stop multiple times to refuel. It's not even an option.
Didn't we talk about some plane
Yes.
hijacking back in the day? And everyone liked to go to Cuba, right?
Yes, because it's, they call it like the Havana. It's a communist country, so they think that, anyway.
Once they get there, they're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
They all go to Cuba.
When the internet said Red Lobster's going away, your boy Flavor Flav said, not today.
people started realizing actually we could go anywhere that we wanted. And they started going to all different sorts of random destinations. There was a golden age of skyjacking where skyjackers, once a week in the US, a US airline was being taken hostage
Yeah.
This
for
was
the span of like 5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So the hijackers, they're quiet for a second because they have to come up with a new plan. They're not going to Cuba anymore. And that plan is you will fly to Pyongyang, North Korea. If you do not fly us into North Korea right now, we will detonate the bombs.
The flight departed from Japan.
Japan. And it was going to another city in Japan.
Right.
And now they want to go to North Korea. So to show the captain how serious they are, they take the microphone and they scream to the entire plane. This plane has been hijacked. We are going to North Korea. We have explosives. If you try and resist us, we will blow up the entire plane. The only problem with their new plan is North Korea doesn't know they're coming. And there's no way to quickly communicate that to North Korea. An unannounced commercial airline from Japan who has zero diplomatic ties to North Korea flying into their airspace with 122 passengers, 7 crew members. That's not a good plan. That's a death wish. The captain tells the hijackers, if they want to get into North Korea, they're going to have to make a pit stop to refuel. There's no way. Again, we were trying to fly between 2 Japanese cities. We're not trying to fly to a different country. That takes a lot more fuel. The plane touches down in Fukuoka. A gas truck pulls up and starts pumping gasoline onto the plane. And everybody's on edge. Even the people outside the plane, everyone at the airport is high alert. Before the plane even touched down, it sent out this massive emergency request to air traffic control at 7:53 a.m. This is Japan Airlines Flight 351. Fukuoka landing has been decided. Skyjackers have bombs. They say they will detonate the bombs if their attempt fails. Absolutely no one may approach the aircraft while we refuel. We will continue to North Korea after refueling. We request maps and directions. But it was a lie. The whole thing was a lie. When the few approved personnel open up the tank to fill it up, the gas tank on the plane, they realized it's pretty full. They could have flown to North Korea. They had more than enough fuel. But the pilots, they decided to take their chances because the hijackers didn't even know how much fuel was on the plane. So they're like, they don't know how a plane works. We got to land in Fukuoka. And hopefully the authorities can make some sort of deal while they're on Japanese soil, while they're on the ground and not 40,000 feet up in the sky.
But imagine like someone hijacked the plane and went to, out of all places, North Korea.
The passengers were very upset. Now, the authorities, they're trying. I'm sure they are. But also news stations, journalists show up, which only triggers the hijackers. Now, all of Japan are watching this hijacking. They've even dubbed it the Yodogo kidnappers. So back then, Japanese airlines used to have nicknames. I'm not sure if they still do, but each airliner had a nickname, like boats. So they would name each plane. This one was named Yodogo, hence the Yodogo hijackers. Now, the hijackers, they start getting angsty from seeing all the reporters, the authorities outside. They also don't know how long it takes to fuel a plane, but they imagine it doesn't take 2.5 hours, which is how long they've been parked there, connected to the gas truck. Now, side note, for this specific aircraft, it should have taken closer to 40 minutes, if not less. Theoretically, under ideal conditions, a Boeing 727 can be refueled in about 20 minutes. So 40 minutes or less. But this has taken the past 2.5 hours.
But they have no idea how long it takes.
No, but they're getting stressed. 1:40 p.m., the door to the plane opens and everybody outside on the tarmac freezes. They have no idea what's going to happen. The hijackers could open fire into the crowd for all they know. They could throw a pipe bomb outside at them, and a figure appears at the door. And then another one, and another one, and they're so confused what's going on right now. 23 children and elderly, and anyone who required medicine that they did not have or medical attention are released from the plane.
Was there like a negotiation going on or?
No.
Oh.
So it seems like the hijackers were annoyed that the kids kept crying and asking for food. And then they were annoyed, so they would have to send the moms with them. And then they were upset with all the people complaining about how they needed medication. They're like, oh, what an inconvenience to my day.
So
and
the
sent them.
2.5 hours, there's no communication?
No. They're just like, get us maps. That's it. We're going to go to North Korea and you can't stop us or we're going to bomb this place. There's no negotiation. They're not trying to negotiate anything. They're like, we're going, and there's not really anything you can do about it. So when the 23rd child walks out,
Just backing
the
up and
door
seeing my
shuts
files.
behind them, locks again. There's still 99 people on that plane. Captain Ishida is staring at his map that he received from Japanese authorities. This is the one thing that the hijackers allowed to be hand delivered to the door, because nobody on the plane has ever been to North Korea. The pilots never even flew over North Korea. Their airspace is considered not very friendly. They have no idea where the airport even is in North Korea. They requested a map, and this is a map that the authorities gave them? It's like a sick joke. It looks like the type of map where I imagine even the maps in middle school textbooks are more detailed than this. You know the world map, the big ones, where the countries are just different colored blobs, and it looks like someone took a pen and traced the outline of the Korean peninsula, drew a line in the middle, and wrote North Korea on top, and then South Korea on the bottom.
That was the map they got?
That's the map.
That-
There's a little dot that says Pyongyang.
They just put a dot? That's it?
Yeah, they didn't even give coordinations, nothing. They didn't give anything.
They said that way.
Yeah, they said, just like, do you know where the Korean peninsula is? Yeah, it's probably somewhere there.
So
that was the map they
Is
received.
this because they truly didn't know?
I think that they did not have a air map that the pilots could use. I imagine they thought, I mean, regardless of the map, it's not going to be helpful for them. But the
Okay.
pilots are still kind of pissed. I mean, it feels like they're playing games right now. This is what the authorities give them so that they can cross over the DMZ. Are they joking right now?
That's crazy.
The demilitarized zone. So that's the line between South and North Korea. Now, there are a few places in the world that you just don't fly over. They're literally called no-fly zones. Most pilots know that it's extremely important to not fly over a no-fly zone. There's a lot of tools that they check before they head into the skies to make sure that nobody is flying, even accidentally, where they're not supposed to. I doubt that pilots could memorize all the no-fly zones by heart because they're constantly changing. There are temporary no-fly zones that get updated and then removed, and then new ones that get added to the list permanently. So for all sorts of reasons, a no-fly zone could be for security purposes, environmental protection, preservation of culture, and preservation of historical sites. So to give you an idea, sometimes they feel seemingly very random. For example, no aircraft can fly within 3,000 feet of Walt Disney World in Florida or Disneyland in California
Why?
for safety reasons, because big crowds, they don't want anything happening. Now,
Ooh,
there
that's
are
smart.
more obvious no-fly zones. For national security purposes,
Area 51.
Washington, D.C. has one of the most restricted airspaces in the entire world. It's pretty common knowledge amongst pilots that the airspace above Washington, D.C. is pretty much a no-go. And it's pretty much common knowledge that the airspace above the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, aka the border between South Korea and North Korea, is one of the most restricted airspaces in the entire world. Probably more than Washington, D.C. I would rather bet my chances and fly over Washington, D.C. because I imagine the US fighter jets would scope you out first and figure out what's going on. I feel the DMZ, they'll shoot you down first and then figure out what's going on. The flight to North Korea is very tense. Everyone on the plane has no idea what's going to happen. They could be shot down. I mean, when the plane was first hijacked, it's, the airline, the pilots, the authorities, they're all going to work in tandem to help save us. So because skyjackings were more common, a lot of the airlines considered it a part of the business. They would have like a pot of cash ready for hijackers. And once they get that pot of cash, they stop hijacking the plane. They're like, okay, well, I don't need all these passengers. That's what they thought was going to happen.
When was this happening again?
1970.
So that was the golden age, right?
Yes, this is before TSA pre-check, or TSA. This is before any sort of airport security. You could walk on and smoke on a plane. So when the plane is parked in Fukuoka, it is the authorities that are surely going to help negotiate them out of there. That's what they're thinking. But now they're up in the sky heading towards North Korea, and their fate is now in the hands of a man who is notorious for sending people and 3 generations of their loved ones into labor camps for no reason. They're just going to bet their life on Kim Il-sung, the former dictator, the supreme leader of North Korea.
Was that Kim Jong-un's dad or grandpa?
Grandpa.
Oh, the original.
Yeah, the original.
founder. Okay.
Japan can't even help them if that's the case. They're not even on diplomatically neutral or even tense terms. They have 0 diplomatic relations. They don't even know how to call North Korea, really. The odds are not in their favor right now. They fly across the DMZ line and the whole plane is silent. You do not have to be a pilot to understand the implications of something like this. The only one talking on the entire plane is the pilot, repeatedly, almost begging the control tower to respond to him. Pyongyang, Pyongyang, please respond. Pyongyang, this is JA351. Pyongyang, please respond. Everyone is expecting to get shot down. They've been holding their breaths. But instead, a voice comes onto the radio. This is Pyongyang. Tune your radio to contact frequency 134.1 MC. Repeat, this is Pyongyang. Tune your radio to contact frequency 134.1 MC. The thick Korean accented man's voice slowly guides them to landing. And eventually, they do notice while they're trying to land, a plane starts flying noticeably close to the airplane. Then another one shows up. They're getting way too close to the plane now. There's two showing up, and they're not just regular planes, they're fighter jets. And the fighter jets start escorting the plane to the airport, guiding the plane on where to fly. Well, okay, guiding is quite a nice word. It's more like forcing the plane to fly a certain way. It's like if you get sandwiched between two massive cars on the highway and they force you to drive to a certain destination. You could call it guiding, but is it really a choice here? The whole plane shakes as it's landing onto the tarmac, and the hijackers are smiling. One of them grabs the microphone. Finally, we have arrived in North Korea. We have imposed
I don't wanna
on you.
go
We've
there.
burdened you as passengers, but we will soon be able to release you. Welcome to North Korea. The hijackers look out the window at their new global revolutionary base. That's how they feel. We'll get into it.
They are all Japanese, right?
Yes. Most of the passengers are Japanese. There's actually 2 American nationals on there.
Wow.
There's a higher up executive from Pepsi on there, as well as a Roman Catholic priest.
And the hijackers are
Japanese.
Japanese, and they're very excited to be in North Korea.
So excited.
Why?
Okay.
Yeah. Very excited.
Okay.
I'm not sure what they expected, since none of them had ever been to North Korea, nor did they even plan to go to North Korea. They were planning to go to Cuba, but they start glancing around. It's not bad. I mean, there's North Korean flags hanging all over the airport. It's not as busy as most airports, but that makes sense considering it's North Korea. It's speculated that Pyongyang has an average of 1 flight per day, whether that's inbound or outbound, which is honestly more than I thought it would be. But compared to the busiest airports in the world, so Atlanta International Airport being one of them, sees an average of 2,700 arrivals and departures daily. 2,700. That's 7.5 years of North Korea's flight schedules done in a single day. And that's just one of US's international airports. They look outside the window, and there's just a few planes parked on the tarmac outside. It's nothing like the airports in Japan. The North Korean flags, they're all hanging in the breeze, and there's rows of North Korean soldiers standing there awaiting their arrival. Their backs are straight. It looks like they have a stick up their shirts. Military is one thing. North Korean military is a whole other game. They're standing at attention, just lined up in these neat rows. There's a group of 15 girls holding flower bouquets and singing the North Korean national anthem. And the hijackers are screaming up and down the aisle, "We're in Pyongyang! We've arrived!" A voice comes over the giant intercom loudspeaker system at the airport. This is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea. You are all welcome here. Please disembark from the aircraft now. We all welcome who are against Japanese imperialism. They open the plane door. And
Crazy.
suddenly one of the hijackers screams, "Close the door! Close it!" They slam the door shut, and nobody knows what's going on right now. Even some of the passengers had gotten up to get their stuff from the overhead bins. It's like, okay, I guess we're in North Korea now. Let's get off. But the hijacker screams, "Close the door now!" What's going on? Look, something's not right. Look outside. Do you see something strange? The hijackers press their faces up against the window, and they do see a few things that feel odd. I mean, obviously, they didn't know what to expect coming into this. None of them had been to North Korea, but this was just questionable. Here's what they noticed. 1, they see a foreign car parked a little ways away. It's not right in their face, but it is a foreign car, which is strange. But you know what? The Kim family, their vehicle of choice is typically the Mercedes-Benz. They like the Maybachs, which cost anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million. The ones that they get.
I didn't know they drive around in foreign cars, but okay.
Yeah, they all their fleets for the elite that the Kim family likes are Mercedes. And Mercedes even investigated because they do not import to North Korea. So they found out it would go through either China or Russia. And they would never be purchased directly by North Korea from like a dealership, obviously. So it's not like North Korea has no foreign cars, just not many without the Kim family's approval. 2, they look around the airstrip and they start counting the planes. Like I said, it's not as many as most airports, but it's still kind of a few. None of them have any commercial airline logos or anything, so it doesn't seem like a busy airport filled with travelers getting in and out, but still, it suddenly feels like a lot of planes for some reason. And 3, they see a black man. Now, North Korea is one of the most ethnically homogenous countries in the entire world. They have a very, 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 very tiny, limited number of ethnic minorities. Some small, tiny, tiny groups of Chinese and Japanese people live in North Korea, which I don't even know if you could consider that an ethnic minority in North Korea. But other than that, internationally, it's known that other than incidents like where the US soldier crossed the DMZ and went into North Korea that we talked about in the auto episode, there's almost zero notable presence of black communities in North Korea. Maybe a diplomat, perhaps. That's what they're thinking. Perhaps that's a diplomat or a diplomat's son or a diplomat's husband.
What was he doing?
Just hanging out on the tarmac. Sometimes North Korea does let in businessmen from other countries, typically mainly from China and Russia, but maybe. But they try to get a better look at the man, and they see what he's wearing. And now they have questions. The black man is seen wearing a US military uniform. Everything
What?
else can maybe be explained away, but there would be zero reason for a US military official to be in North Korea unless they're dead. If you wake up one day with no memory of anything, you have no idea what's happened, and somebody tells you, "Hi, good morning, welcome, you're in North Korea." You do not believe them. Because I was in America yesterday. What do you mean? What is the one thing that you ask them for that is reasonable for them to get to you in the next 5 minutes that can prove to you without a shadow of doubt this is indeed North Korea? The hijackers grab the radio to talk to the police outside. Is this North Korea? If so, can you bring us a giant picture of your leader, Kim Il-sung? Bring it to us now.
Whoa, that is very true. Everybody should have that handy.
It should be hanging at the airport, honestly. There's silence. This is a military base, so there is no picture of Kim Il-sung here, but we will bring you one soon. Because you arrived so suddenly, we were unable to prepare to welcome you properly. The whole thing isn't making sense. The lead hijacker opens the airplane door and shouts down at the bus driver waiting to take them into the airport. And he screams in English, "Is this Seoul?" The bus driver is alone in the bus. No military men near him, nothing. He panics and responds in English, "Yes!"
What?
They close the door because what the hell? This is South Korea.
Damn.
I told you from the beginning, didn't I? That the whole hijacking had been a lie. And the truth.
Damn. So the one black guy gave it away. That's actually kind of hilarious. Damn, the one black guy gave it away. Interesting. Let's keep going.
Is the plane was not able to go to Cuba without refueling multiple times. That was the truth. They did not need to land in Fukuoka to refuel, but they did. Authorities used this time to collaborate between Japan, South Korea, and potentially the United States, and they quickly scrambled to figure out a plan because they can't stop the plane now. They can't storm it. The hijackers have explosives, but they can't just let the plane full of civilians fly straight into North Korea, so they need to devise up a plan within
That's
an
actually
hour.
hilarious.
They make Gimpo Airport, which is the smaller airport in Seoul, not Incheon, but Gimpo. They make it look like a North Korean airport.
What in the world?
The amount of coordination that it takes is astronomical. They have to get most of the commercial airliners off the tarmac. All of the international flights, all the South Korean planes with Korean Air, Asiana Airlines, they got to get it off. Any truck with a logo that's South Korean or Western, because a lot of the fueling trucks, they have the Shell logo on the side,
Right.
has to be gone. They have to cover up all advertisements because there is no advertising in North Korea. They have to procure North Korean flags, swap out all the South Korean flags for North Korean flags. They have to take down all the international flags that some airports have, like Gimpo did. And they have to do all of this. They have to procure North Korean military uniforms, dress everyone up in them. They even went as far to get a bunch of girls in uniform to sing the national anthem of North Korea. This was not an easy feat.
But they forgot there was an American soldier.
Yeah, because the American military were involved. They obviously tried to hide the people that weren't obviously Korean looking or didn't resemble a North Korean, but it was hard. There's a lot of coordination. The map that Japanese authority gave the pilots was intentionally bad so that they wouldn't rely on the map and they would rely on the radio. The man that intercepted the radio with the thick Korean accent that said, "This is Pyongyang, tune into this radio," it was a South Korean military man. They
Creating content shouldn't
That
be
is
this complicated.
crazy.
crossed the DMZ though. They did cross, and the South Korean man panicked and was giving them directions to slowly U-turn without making it obvious back into South Korea. South Korean fighter jets appeared and then guided them into Gimpo.
What a plan.
Within the hour, they managed to trick the hijackers that they were landing in North Korea. But now the ruse is up. They know. And now the negotiations shall begin. Estimates show that about $200 million worth of US currency, meaning US cash, in circulation right now being used is fake, is counterfeit. To be fair, there's about $2.3 trillion in circulation right now, so the odds of you having a fake bill by accident are pretty low, but it's never zero. Because there's what's known as super fakes, super notes. They are made with the same high-tech color-shifting ink that the US $100 bill is made from. They print on the same precise composition of fibers. Because did you know the US bills are not printed on paper? It's a mixture of cotton and linen. That's what the bills are made of. The correct blend requires a very special paper-making machine that is nearly impossible to purchase. And then to get the formula down pat, very difficult. The engravings are typically even better than what's produced in the US, these super notes. Most people won't even be able to tell the difference between a super note and a real $100 bill. That little pen that they give you at work to check for bills, or at least that's what they gave me, I thought they were foolproof. They're not. They're not going to catch this. You know, you put it up to the light and you look at the hologram or the little transparency. That's not going to catch this. For super notes, it takes sophisticated forensic analysis for most of them to be confirmed as counterfeit currency. North Korea is allegedly the biggest counterfeiter of US currency. So they call it like a two birds, one stone, allegedly. Is they make a lot of money from the counterfeit bills for the North Koreans, but it's also to diminish the US dollar. It's almost
It's kind
some
of
people from
funny.
the US Treasury have considered it an act of war. In Thailand, the police are starting to notice more and more US $100 bills stacking up on their desk. They're all from the banks. Super fakes, counterfeit. They're all super notes. The Thai police start their investigations, and it leads them to this small, inconspicuous little office in Cambodia. They raid the facilities, and ultimately, they arrest a man in connection with the high-quality counterfeit US bills in circulation. And the man claims he's a North Korean diplomat, which originally makes sense. North Korea, like I said, was still probably known for creating near-perfect super notes. I mean, this makes a lot of sense, right? They're allegedly bringing in tens of millions of dollars a year from making counterfeit US dollar bills. North Korea denies it, of course, but the US has tracked millions of dollars worth of super notes being smuggled into the US, and it all traces back eventually to North Korea. The man in the office with the super notes claims to be a North Korean diplomat, but they all know that's not true. They run his prince. He's not North Korean. He's Japanese. His real name is Yoshimi Tanaka. He was one of the members of the hijacking group of Japan Airlines 351. The hijackers had not been heard from for the past 20 years. Everyone thought they were either dead or held captive in North Korea. What the hell is this man doing in Thailand? This is 20 years after the hijacking. There is
Interesting.
no set number or value to human life. until you're a hostage negotiator. Then suddenly there's a very real price for life. The proposed deal that authorities give the plane hijackers is quite simple. One man's life in exchange for all the others. Let all the hostages go, let all the civilians go, and we will give you one man in exchange. It's simple. The hijackers are like, this man better be special. He is. The Vice Minister of Transport of Japan release the hostages and take the Vice Minister of Transportation to North Korea. That is the deal.
One person for 100 people?
Because North Korea would probably be more interested in a politician.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys know this, but I have a really bad eye for making a good outfit. I can usually pick out the clothing pieces themselves that I really like these pair of brown linen pants that looks really good, or the chunky loafers that give great dark academia vibes. And I can piece together the outfit in my head and it looks good, and I feel like I've seen people wear it online and it looks good. But when it becomes reality, I feel like I'm left looking like a kid playing dress up, which is why I decided to work with a Stitch Fix stylist. Stitch Fix is an online styling service who matches you with a professional stylist. I thought working with a stylist would be a little bit awkward, but it has been so much fun. It's like having a fashionable best friend who is always ready to shop with you. This is how Stitch Fix works. Anytime I'm looking to upgrade my wardrobe, I reach out to my stylist. I give her my size, budget, and a small description on what style I'm trying to achieve, whether that is a minimalistic look or a preppy vibe, or I just need help putting together an outfit for a formal event. My stylist will then send me 5 pieces picked for me, just me, with outfit recommendations and pro styling tips. I also love that she'll give me styling tips with accessories that I already own, and I think that was a huge part of why my outfits never looked like the outfits I see online. It was always, I never had the right socks, I never had the right leg warmers. But now I feel like I'm so much more confident about my styling. I try on the pieces that she sends me and decide what I would like to keep, but I almost always keep all of my personalized pieces because my stylist, I feel like, just gets me. I honestly believe that she can read my mind sometimes because she is able to put together perfect outfits no matter the style that I'm trying. The best part of Stitch Fix is that there's no subscription required. I can order boxes when and how I want, whether that's tomorrow or a month from now. With each box, I can keep what I love and send back the rest, because shipping, returns, and
Just gonna
exchanges
save
are
real
always
quick.
free with Stitch Fix. Style that makes you feel
Just gonna save real quick. We're gonna keep going. Yeah. This is actually very interesting.
as good as you look. Now's the best time to get started at stitchfix.com/rotten and get $100 off. That's $25 off your first 4 fixes for a limited time only. That's stitchfix.com/rotten for $100 off. Stitchfix.com/rotten. Must redeem within 7 days of sign up. Offer does not include kids fixes. $50 hours. The plane has been parked at Gimpo in South Korea for 50 hours when Vice Minister Yamamura offers himself up as an exchange. At first, the hijackers don't want to take it, but they look at the passengers and all the passengers are on edge. They're ready to do something crazy to get off this freaking plane. The AC has shut off because you need fuel for that. During the mid-afternoon, temperatures inside the plane are reaching 104 degrees. The air circulation is horrid. The air is stale. The toilets are fully backed up, meaning the flushing isn't even working. The toilet in the back is overflowing, and there is nothing they can do to escape this scent, and there is no air circulation. The men have been tied up to their chairs. Everyone who's not tied up, even if they're strangers, are having to help wipe the sweat off their brows. At first,
All right, that's
everybody
safe.
was
Let's keep
calm.
going.
They were ready to be accommodating
Just
so
ran for a
that they can
couple
get
more
out
real
with their lives. But now they're getting anxious. They're not even allowed to eat. They all scarfed down the food that's already on the plane, and when the authorities offered to bring in new food for the passengers, the hijackers denied. They're scared that the food is laced with sleeping drugs that would knock them out, give the authorities enough time to break in and free the passengers and arrest the 9 hijackers. The passengers are starting to feel the heat. The lead hijacker looks at the others. The passengers have reached their limit. We have to do something. Which is the exact same conversation happening outside of the plane with Japan, South Korea, and allegedly the CIA. There are a lot of higher ups with their own ways of wanting to handle this gathered in the same room. From Japan, you have the Vice Minister of Political Affairs, but the Vice Minister of Transport, members from the Ministry of Transport, as well as the Ambassador of Japan for South Korea. They're present because the hijackers, like I said, are all Japanese, and it's a Japanese commercial airliner, and most of the passengers are Japanese nationals. But because the hostage plane is now on South Korean soil, South Korea has a bunch of military units, defense minister, transportation minister, interior minister, all present. Then the US allegedly gets involved. Now, South Korea-based US troops arrive at the scene. That is a known fact. Some sources allege that the CIA got involved in the negotiations because, well, the US military does typically get involved in most things South Korea related. They do have like a treaty, and it's a whole thing. But also, there are 2 American nationals on board, like I said, the Pepsi executive and the Roman Catholic priest. So it appears that them landing in South Korea was coordinated by the 3 groups in record time within the hour. But now they're all stressed. And now that the plane is on South Korean soil, they can see the plane, they can see the hostages.
That is
the
crazy.
hijackers are pissed that this is not
All right,
Kim's
keep going.
land. Now what? Now suddenly, all these people have different interests. Of course, the ultimate interest for all parties is the safety of the hostages. But South Korea knows that the whole world is watching this. And if this doesn't go the way it's supposed to, South Korea could be seen as an easy target for hijacking and terrorist groups. The US likely has a pride thing here. If the CIA is involved, which people are speculating they are, then they better get a deal done. Because really, the CIA can't take care of a hostage plane, most powerful intelligence agency in the world, and you can't even talk a few university students off a Boeing? Japan likely has the worst situation in their hands. Their citizens are the hijackers. Most of the passengers are Japanese citizens, but now they're in another country causing an international situation. Nobody's having a good time here. They try walking through all sorts of scenarios. Okay, let's try ambushing them at night. Turn off all the airport lights so that they can't see anything outside. We force entry. But that could result in too many casualties. They could start blowing up the plane. They thought about lacing the food that they tried to send in with sleeping pills. But again, that could result in innocent casualties. The people on the plane are going to be eating the food. The 9 hijackers, the odds that some of them don't eat the food and take turns keeping watch is very high. The authorities are doing anything they can to scrape together a single coherent thought, an idea. But all of it leads to one conclusion. There is no way to get inside this plane without risking the passengers. Inside the plane, an older man stands up. He throws his hands in the air and screams, "Kill me then! If you're gonna kill me, just do it now!" The leader of the hijackers smirks and starts slowly walking up to the old man. He gets in his face. "If you tell me to kill you, I'll kill you." Another hostage taker walks up to the leader and calmly hands him a sword. The leader takes it without even looking at him. He never breaks eye contact with the old man, all the way until the old man slowly, calmly sits back down without saying another word. The authorities outside are actually quite impressed by this whole situation, by how long the hijackers are holding out. They're not giving in, not even in the slightest. Just listening to their voices, it doesn't appear that they're losing steam either. They sound just as determined as ever.
Why are they parked there for 50 hours if they're going to go to North Korea?
They need fuel.
It takes 50 hours?
No, South Korea is refusing to let them fuel.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
A lot of it also has to do with posturing. I think perhaps a lot of the authorities did care for the civilians involved. I would hope so, but knowing the way politics works in most countries, including ours, the United States, I think they cared to a degree. I think what they cared most about, though, is that the whole world is watching. And if they let this plane of innocent civilians go into North Korea, the message that it sends of where North Korea's power is in relation to Japan and South Korea is going to be disastrous. It's definitely a political mind game, and I think the passengers are being swept. Tamiya, the leader of the group, tells the authorities, "We are determined to go to North Korea, determined to do everything necessary to get there and receive military training. Eventually, we will return across the sea to Japan to start a revolution. We are determined. We are going to do this no matter how high the walls between the nations may stand." The Japanese ambassador to Korea tries to reason with the hijackers. "Do not make light of your lives. You are all still so young. You should think about the future and not act so rashly." We cannot trust the words of some lying diplomat. "And do the North Koreans know that you're coming?" Silence. we have not made contact. More silence.
Mm.
Because they're going to go into North Korea without a plan, without knowing about Kim Il-sung, if he's going to open their arms to them or if he's going to kill them. The ambassador gets stopped by his assistant, and all the Japanese official, almost in tandem, stop what they're doing and listen. They have all just been informed North Korea has made contact with Japan.
What?
Again, this is so incredibly rare. They have no diplomatic relations. They don't have ambassadors for each other. The message is sent by North Korea. The safety of the aircraft through our airspace is guaranteed. All aboard the aircraft will be treated humanely, and the aircraft will be returned. North Korea is willing to take the hijackers in. What does that even mean?
What about the hostages?
Exactly. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Japan has to do something. If North Korea assures them that the flight is going to be safe, then the best choice would to let them go to North Korea, right? I mean, them as in the hijackers, not the civilians. They cannot let 99 civilians go into North Korea. That's crazy. The negotiations are still on. One life in exchange for all the rest. Take the vice minister of transport with you into North Korea and give up all the civilians. It's easier to control one person than it is to control 99 people. Then and only then can the plane get refueled and head straight into Pyongyang.
But also the guy who's the minister of transport.
Yes.
You think that's like him willingly?
Yes.
Really?
He offered himself up, and I do think that there is some context to be had here. In America, I think it's a little bit different. In places like Japan, and I would say a lot more of the Eastern countries, it's almost his career is over unless he does something.
Oh, this is basically his fault, you were saying?
Yes, they're going to say it's his fault for not protecting his constituents.
Wow.
So he's never going to get reelected. His career is over.
Right.
This is a failure on his part. He let it
Right,
happen.
okay,
So
so
unless he offers him...
99 lives is already on him.
Yes.
Okay.
Whereas I think it maybe in places like the US, it wouldn't be on these people. It'd just be like, okay, you either handled it well or poorly. But it wouldn't necessarily be their fault
Got it. Yeah.
that hijackers did this.
Okay.
But in Japan, it might be considered his fault to a degree.
Yes.
So-
The social pressure
Yes.
is very, very strong. Yeah.
He offers himself up. So the hijackers, they finally agree. And after 4
Crazy.
days and 3 nights on the plane, parked in Seoul, they finally agree to let the hostages go. Surprisingly, on the way out, many of the hostages would wish the hijackers the best of luck on their mission. One of the hostages would later say, as individuals, they were very polite and very pleasant companions. The hijackers were part of the, quote, Red Army, which is a militant sub-faction of a political organization called the Communist League in Japan. So to put it simply, without getting too political, because I'm truly not at all well-versed in Japanese politics, not even a little bit, but their goals were overthrow the Japanese government, incite a communist revolution in Japan, contribute to a global communist revolution, establish international bases for other revolutions to pull resources from. Those were their main goals. And the way that they were going to achieve these goals was not in the form of winning elections, getting votes. They were going to rob banks to fund their missions, attack police stations and government agencies, including the prime minister's personal residence. They're actually responsible, or partly responsible, for a massive massacre. They've taken 50 innocent people hostage before for the purpose of negotiating to get fellow members out of prison. They were able to get a $6 million ransom from the Japanese government after holding another group of people hostage. They've set off car bombs that have killed multiple innocent civilians, injuring multiple innocent civilians. They've attacked embassies, primarily US and British embassies. They're categorized as a highly violent group to get what they want.
Wow.
So that has nothing to do with the actual party. This is like the sub-faction, the militant subgroup. They're very extreme. The whole point of even hijacking a plane was to get to Cuba to get military training. They wanted highly specialized, militarized arms training so that they can hold revolutions on a global scale. And likely so that they can pull off more of these deadly missions with more efficiency, which is terrifying. But one of the passengers, the hostages, said, in that moment, when you see the 9 of them screaming up and down, jumping together in joy, we're going to Pyongyang, we're going to Pyongyang. This is the new base for our international revolution. All the passengers could think was, they're just so young.
Wow.
The hijackers would even sit around and tell the passengers about their beliefs, in a sense, trying to convince them to believe what they believe. And even at the end, food was brought in by authorities. And at the last meal, the hijackers did a toast and said, "It's time for us to part ways. We wish to convey our deepest gratitudes to you. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for being such a burden. Let's have a little farewell celebration. We will fight to the end on behalf of the world's oppressed. We will persist and do our best until the end. We have caused you great unhappiness, but we hope you understand that we did it because we love Japan and we want to make Japan a better place for all." Everyone cheered.
Guess you have to cheer, right?
2:27 p.m., the door to the plane opens for the last time in Seoul. The news reporters from 3 different countries are standing near the plane. Military officials with snipers pointed at the door are stationed across the airport. A woman in a kimono appears at the door, a flight attendant. She takes the first step down the plane stairs. Then a man in a suit comes out behind her, and slowly, one by one, the passengers start making their way down the stairs. And the minute that they touch the ground off the steps, the reporters start cheering, getting louder with each person that steps onto the ground. When about half the hostages are released, the whole tarmac goes silent. Because this was all agreed upon between the two parties, the hijackers and the authorities. At that moment, a hijacker appears at the top, one of the 9. And then I'm just going to call the vice minister, just the vice minister from now on, but he is the vice minister of transport. You get it. The vice minister shows up at the bottom. They both stare at each other. Yamamura said this before climbing up the stairs. He said, "To tell you the truth, my legs were shaking." The hijacker takes 1 step. Vice minister takes 1 step. They do this slowly, 1 step at a time, until they have this tense moment where they both step on at the same step at the center of the stairs. So they do this because the hijackers were scared they're going to let off most of the hostages, and then the vice minister would not board. Now, the authorities are like, well, if we let the vice minister board early, what if you just close the door and take half the hostages and the vice minister?
Yeah.
So that's why they're sending out a hijacker as a placeholder.
What is that person gonna do?
He's going to go back onto the plane once the rest of the hostages are released.
Oh.
So it's like an insurance policy for both sides.
Yep, okay.
Now, they have this very tense moment where they both step onto the same step at the middle of the stairs. And then they walk past each other. And they're listening from behind. And when they hear the other party take a step, they take a step. And now the hijackers, they have one of their own outside the plane. And the government officials have one of their own inside the plane. That's how you exchange hostages. Once the vice minister is tied up in a seat, most of the other hostages are let out one by one until the very last one. He appears at the top and the hijacker appears at the bottom. And they do the same thing. So by the end of it, all the hostages are out and the hijacker and the vice minister are back in.
You say the vice minister came back out?
No. The last hostage.
Oh, the last Oh.
Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
half the
yeah.
hostages, then they exchange a vice minister for the hijacker. Then the last hostage and the hijacker swap.
Do a swap. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So another very tense meeting happens, and when they step on the same step in the middle of the stairs, the hostage looks at the hostage taker and says, "Take care of yourself, okay? Keep a sharp eye. Keep a sharp eye." The hijacker says, "Okay, until we meet again." They both smile and watch each other walk away.
So polite, huh?
Yeah. The hostage exchange was now complete. The plane positioned itself, and 83 hours after being hijacked, they were now departing for North Korea. Some of the hostages even took out their handkerchiefs to wave them at the plane that was flying away.
What about the
What?
pilots?
The pilots are in there.
Oh man.
2 pilots and I think another crew member.
So they still have 3 more hostage.
Yes. Yes. For everyone else, the authorities watching them taking off, getting higher and higher in the sky, it's a grim moment, mainly because nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going to happen in North Korea, but also nobody knows what's going to happen to the vice minister. And nobody knows that all the weapons that the hijackers were threatening them with were
fake?
just toys.
It's fake knife?
Fake knives,
Oh.
fake bombs, fake everything. Everything was fake. It was all a lie, like I said. A young woman in Japan is sitting in front of a clairvoyant. She is desperate for some guidance at this point. She's felt this feeling of loss for the past few years of her life, and it just won't go away. And the clairvoyant tells her, soon, before you turn 30, your fortune will change. You will find love. You will get married. Yes, but how likely even is that? For the past almost decade, okay, no, more like 8 years, her fortune has been decidedly okay? Her boyfriend, the one she met while working as a nurse at Tokyo University, the one that she fell in love with almost instantly, it was so sudden. She said the minute that she laid eyes on him, she was ready to trust him with her entire life. Her boyfriend, that guy, he's in North Korea and he hasn't written a single letter. She has no idea what he's been doing, if he's moved on, if he still thinks about her, nothing. She doesn't even know if he's alive. Side note, he didn't even tell her that he was going to take a plane hostage in case she reported him. He just told her that he's not going to see her for a year or two, but she should pay attention to the news. That's it. And then he hijacked a commercial airplane. But this is the sign that she needs from the clairvoyant to somehow, to do whatever it takes, get herself to North Korea to marry the man she loves. One of the 9 plane hijackers.
Because why she loves him?
Yes.
Wow, that's
crazy.
some next level.
Love.
Yeah.
There was a lot of conversation of if South Korea had not let them land in Seoul, would things have played out differently? Probably. It said that Kim Il-sung's favorite thing about this whole situation was it was a massive slap in the face to the Western countries. Well, some of them. First of all, the hostage situation made international news. And to think that 3 countries, allegedly, Japan, South Korea, and probably the United States, could not offer the hijackers something, could not force them or negotiate with them. The fact that the hijackers didn't even want to be there in the first place. They didn't want to be in Japan. They don't like Japan. They want to hold a revolution. They don't like South Korea. They don't want to be in South Korea. They want to be in North Korea. That's the biggest win. It's free, natural, easy propaganda for the world. So back when Kim Il-sung was running North Korea it wasn't what it is today. A lot of people felt sympathy for North Korea. There were a lot of people who actually understood why he might do something like this, why he might turn away from a capitalistic world. It was not what it is today. Like, people were not starving. The people were not dying. So there were a lot of primarily university students from all over the world that actually sympathized a lot with North Korea and actually kind of, to a degree, thought maybe Kim Il-sung knows a little something, something. We don't know. Right. Yeah. So the university students, they self-exiled themselves to distance themselves from the rotten capitalistic society of Japan. This is good. That's how he felt. Kim's reading the poem that they all wrote him. Oh yeah, they're in North Korea now. And they've been there for a few years. And they're writing poems.
Oh, they're living in the little
village.
Little Japan.
Yeah.
But they can't do anything. They can't go anywhere.
For now. They write Kim a poem, and it reads, "You raised us, nameless as we were, and entrusted us with the Japanese Revolution. In the love of our father, our leader, we face the glorious battle. Such love, such kindness, we hold it in our hearts. We offer everything to our great general. With the guidance of the great general, the future of Japan will flower. We are soldiers of the premier. We advance along the road of loyalty. Oh, our fatherly great general, our loyal hearts pray you will live 10,000 years." Just years after they landed in North Korea, the hijackers were now Kim Il-sung's golden pieces in his little game to world domination. The landing in North Korea was rough, just like every other part of the hijackers' trips. The pilots on Japan Airlines 351 had no contact with air traffic controls of North Korea. The sun is setting. They've been doing circles in Pyongyang. They don't know where the airport is. They basically have to land now or else they're screwed. They have never been to the Pyongyang airport. They can't even locate it. The best option they have was to land on this tiny little landing strip about 15 miles from Pyongyang International Airport. They're one step away from driving off the landing strip. And then finally, 13 people step off the plane. 9 hijackers, 3 crew members, and the Vice Minister of Transport, Yamamura. One of the hijackers would later admit, "We didn't know if we would be chased off the moment we landed at Pyongyang or be thrown into a prison, or if we would be told to leave immediately. But instead of being tense, they were instantly treated like heroes. One of the hijackers said, we were put up at a hotel in Pyongyang the first night. We almost expected to be escorted straight to like an internment camp. So it was unexpectedly very nice treatment. After meeting with the authorities, we were shown to the hotel dining room where we had this full banquet, a full course, multiple course Korean banquet. I have never eaten at such a banquet before in my life. The crew members, the vice minister, were allowed to fly back to Japan after being wined and dined for a few days. But they had to kickstart their own plane. Okay, so to put it simply, North Korea did not have a battery starter for a Boeing plane at their disposal. Japan was frantically trying to send one, but North Korea was like, you cannot be sending shit from Japan to us. So they were trying to get one into Moscow, then import it into North Korea because it was the whole thing. But eventually the crew were so desperate to get out of there, the 2 pilots and the additional crew member, they found a car battery, used a local compressed air cylinder, and kickstarted the plane's battery themselves. They're like, we got to get out of here.
They left? Four of them they left?
Yes.
Wow.
They flew back to Japan. Their coming home was a huge deal. It was seen as a very positive thing. And in the minds of most Japanese people in the world, the hijacking situation was over. You know, news cycles are moving on. There's really nothing more to the story. The Japanese government did try to extradite and are still trying to extradite the hijackers out of North Korea, but North Korea would reject all of their requests, and they would very richly say, we just don't think it's humane what Japan might do to the hijackers, so we're going to keep them here. We are protecting them from their own government.
Do we know if the 9 people are still alive or?
A few of them are dead. A few
But
of them
some
are
are
dead.
still alive.
Yes, and still living in North Korea. There
What?
had been an influx of missing women in Japan. And there were rumors about this, but nobody could really confirm it. These missing women all had a few things in common. They were all unmarried, without children, and they all, to a degree, either sympathized with North Korean ideologies or believed in it. They were all part of groups or social clubs that read the teachings of Kim Il-sung, and they all vanished on an overseas trip to Europe. Just vanished, without a trace. They left nothing behind, not even a single suitcase, not a single item of clothing, just disappeared. Coincidentally, around the time, during a press conference, Kim Il-sung was asked about the hijackers that are still in North Korea. This is like years after the hijacking. Nobody's heard from the hijackers. They've made no contact with the world. Obviously, people have questions. Are they still alive? What's going on? Why aren't you letting them go back to Japan? How long are you going to keep them? Do they even want to stay here? What are they doing? Where are they living? But of course, they can't ask any of that. Instead, they just try to bring up some of the hijackers, and Kim Il-sung, without any sort of prompting, just responds. The hijackers say they wish to return to Japan, but if they do, they would have to stand trial. In Korea, we have a saying, after 10 years, even rivers and mountains change. I think their feelings might have changed too. In many ways, they're married now to Japanese women and with children. It's been a long time, so I would say to Japan, please consider dropping all the charges against them. The headlines all over Japan would read, missing women are wives of hijackers.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, we'll get there. It is speculated that Kim Il-sung held a secret operation called Operation Marriage, where North Korean operatives allegedly kidnapped Japanese women and forced them to get married to the hijackers in one massive wedding ceremony of 9 couples. He lets them live in this massive gated compound called Little Japan, but soon they would later call it the Village of Revolution. Because the part that's fascinating is, why would Kim Il-sung care at all about whether these men get married or not? Or care about these men at all in general? One of the guys writes in his diary, there are probably people who are angry that we got married, but I think men ought to marry. Men and women too should get married. If you're engaged with something that gets in the way of your getting married, I think you'll eventually lose interest in it. Wait, what is he talking about? Isn't he just being held captive in North Korea? So at this point, within a few years of being in North Korea, whether it was out of necessity or pure interest or both, the hijackers start turning their interest into North Korea. Their revolution was no longer about Japan. It was about uniting North and South Korea under Kim Il-sung's rule. And since that moment, the hijackers are moved from the hotel to their own little village. They go through a series of indoctrinations, brainwashing sessions, where they unlearn everything that had to do with their revolution and reprogram their minds with the teachings of Kim Il-sung. The first that they had to learn was, this is not like every other revolutionary meeting that you've been to in the past, okay? There is no room for interpretation here. Either you agree or you disagree. There's no half agreeing. Either your life is in danger or you're safe. There's no middle ground where you're like, kind of skirting the edge of danger. And now their new mission is, yes, hold a revolution in Japan where Kim Il-sung will take over, but also in South Korea and other parts of Europe. Kim Il-sung should honestly rule the world. Their whole point was to make sure North Korea has supporters all over the world. They can't do this if they're the only ones. Like 9 people, they're not going to change the world's views. They need to go into different countries, hold seminars, find groups of people that sympathize with the North, and like have this whole organization put together where they can all support Kim Il-sung's goals. And slowly they can start bringing in more and more countries. Kim Il-sung obviously agrees with their new vision because it's his vision, but believes that they need to have a family to really throw themselves into their revolutionary work. There's a few reasons for this. One, it said that after Konishi Takahiro's girlfriend, she's the one with the clairvoyant, she moves from Japan to Beijing. Beijing, because they have a North Korean embassy, she begs North Korean embassies, please let me go to North Korea. Please, I want to go to North Korea so bad. Please let me go. They're like, okay, fine,
So she
go to North Korea.
willingly went there.
Yes.
Okay.
Once she's allowed into North Korea, she and Konishi Takahiro start their own little group within the group. You know, they're the only ones that are coupled up, and it starts creating this very strange dynamic amongst the hostage takers. They felt like it was just them. They were in this together as revolutionaries. Why does he get to have emotional comfort and physical attention? And 2, this is terrifying, and it's not further expanded upon any source I could find, even this like 420-page book that I read on it. But it said that the men tried to engage in highly inappropriate sexual acts with the North Korean women that were staffed to work for them in this gated compound. Yeah, so I feel like that's putting it lightly. This seems like the biggest trigger for the North Korean party to get involved. And lastly, 3, within a year of getting married, almost all of them have children. And that is how the group are allowed to leave North Korea, to find more revolutionaries around the world to join them. Kim Il-sung envisioned that the hijackers would go to Europe, all over Asia, find like-minded people and convince them, and they would have covert operatives across the world working for him, building their own teams of revolutionaries that are going to help Kim Il-sung take over their countries. But that means the hijackers would have to leave North Korea for these operations, but what's the insurance plan? How can Kim be so certain that they're going to come back? Their wives aren't going to do it. These wives are just like random kidnapped women from Japan, other than Kunishi's girlfriend. What is the emotional attachment there? That's why they have kids. You keep the kid in North Korea, send the parents abroad. And North Korea is known for doing that.
Wow.
And it worked. Because remember that guy in Cambodia?
Yeah.
One of the hijackers? It's alleged, obviously everything's alleged because North Korea doesn't confirm anything, but it's alleged that he was working with North Korea on the counterfeiting schemes. It's unclear exactly what the hijackers did for North Korea after landing there. Some speculate they were all assigned different roles. We do know that one was arrested, like I said, for spreading the counterfeit US super notes in Southeast Asia. It's speculated that they were all working as North Korean operatives, the hijackers and even their wives. There are allegations that whenever the members of the group would be in Europe, Japanese nationals would go missing on their trips in Europe.
They're kidnapping people?
Yes.
Why?
To turn them into like and this all comes full circle, but to turn them into basically, so I'm assuming the Japanese nationals that they kidnapped had some sort of sympathy for North Korea. So they're bringing them into North Korea to brainwash them further and create more operatives to send out. And the Japanese passport is stronger. Like you're not going to get into all the countries on a North Korean passport, even if it's a diplomacy passport.
Right. So they want more Japanese.
Yes. So that's why the wives for the hijackers, first of all, they can't marry North Korean women because it's highly illegal for North Koreans to marry anyone that's not North Korean because they believe in race purity. Yeah, or like, I guess, national purity in this case. So they brought in Japanese wives, but also what they would do is they would send the Japanese wives with a North Korean diplomat passport out into these different countries, mainly Europe. And then once they get into Europe, they start using their Japanese passport to get into other countries and to move around. Yes. So they wanted a lot of different passports involved in this whole situation is what I'm getting out of this. Now, North Korea did admit to kidnapping Japanese people. And even if you look at the one where North Korea kidnapped a South Korean actress, you'll see that she's in a compound just like this. And she meets a Japanese woman at one point. She like meets a Chinese woman at one point. There's just a lot of different nationals there. So, yeah. As of 2004, the hijackers have requested permission from North Korea to return back to Japan. And there are mixed feelings about this. So the hijackers do genuinely seem like they want to go back to Japan. And Kim Il-sung is long dead. Ooh, well, he is dead, right? But don't kill me. Kim Jong-un, his grandson, has taken over, and I don't think that he sees as much value in them, but I think he just keeps them around because he doesn't want to give them back to Japan. Now, there are other theories, though, that the hijackers are begging to go back to Japan under the disguise of like, oh, we miss our home country, but they're going to try and start some stuff there.
Wait, so right now, they wanted to leave, but they're not allowed to leave.
Yeah, North Korea won't let them leave. So far, there's no real
So you got what
answers.
you wanted.
The vice minister of transport, the one that exchanged his life for the passengers, he was actually scheduled to fly into Pyongyang, I would say maybe like a decade ago, for negotiations to swap the hijackers or to get them back. But coincidentally, the day before he was scheduled to leave, his daughter suffered from a psychotic break and stabbed him to death with a kitchen knife.
His
What?
daughter killed him?
Yeah, she had a psychotic
Oh,
break.
that's sad.
Prior to this, his career was flourishing. I mean, when he got back, he was the hostage official. I mean, he put his money where his mouth is. He's like, I'm for the people. And people, how can you argue with that? He did save his, exchange his life for the people.
Wow.
But he is dead. Yeah. As of right now, Yoshimi Tanaka, one of the hijackers, was arrested in Thailand for distributing super notes, counterfeit US currency. He was extradited to Japan, where he died of liver cancer in 2007 in prison. Takeshi Okamoto is suspected to be dead. It's suspected that he actually attempted to flee North Korea on a boat. Kintaro Yoshida is also suspected to have denied the teachings of North Korea and was allegedly suspected of being sent to a prison camp where he likely died.
How do we know all this information about their stay?
The book that I read, the author actually did multiple visits to North Korea, obviously with North Korea's permission, and he was interviewing the hijackers.
Wow.
So it's suspected it was part of North Korea's plan to make the hijackers not seem like they're all part of Kim Il-sung's little group and make them seem like, oh, North Korea is just a nice place. We like living here. So that more people would accept their teachings if they were to go abroad. Tamiya Takamaro, the leader of the group, the original leader of the group, was said to have died from a mysterious illness in North Korea. Also allegedly suspicious. Yoshiro Shibata, he's the youngest member of the group. The hijacking happened when he was only 16. He actually went to Japan to recruit people to North Korea, but he was arrested for forging a passport. He went under a fake passport. After his sentence, he stayed in Japan until he died in 2011. Takahiro Konishi is currently still living in North Korea. He is internationally wanted. It is alleged that he has taken over as the leader of the group. Abe Kimihiro is currently still in North Korea as well. He is wanted by Interpol for kidnapping Japanese people. Wakabayashi Moriaki also lives in North Korea as well. Shira Akagi also lives in North Korea. And if and when the remaining wives get back, they're facing 10 months in prison, while the husbands will probably face more than 10 years in prison for their crimes. They will be facing charges of assault with a deadly weapon, international kidnapping, theft of an airplane, and the crime of taking hostages. Back then, there was no crime of airplane hijacking, so they couldn't be charged with that. All of the children, however, of the hijackers have returned to Japan. Well, I guess it's not returned, but they now live in Japan.
How did that happen?
Yeah, I guess North Korea was like, yeah, just go. I think it became too many people.
Wow.
Yeah. The interesting thing to note, though, is the hijackers went through all of this because their whole belief, the reason that they even hijacked the plane to begin with, was one of it was based on having a classless society where wealth and resources were distributed very equally. But they were and are living the lives of the 0.01% in North Korea. They are literally the richest of the rich in North Korea. And it does not seem like they have a problem with class disparity anymore, as long as they're part of the group that gets to live comfortably.
Wow.
So
Not
much
funny?
for their vision.
Yeah.
What are your
That is
thoughts
something.
on this case? I'm just
It's
like,
just feels unreal.
I did not, yeah, and who, what? Yeah, I don't even know what to say to this one. And the fact that they're still living in North Korea is crazy. See, this is what I say. You get what you ask for. And I feel like they probably have a lot of regrets on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if they really come out and share what happened in the last
Oh.
20, 30 years,
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't think we're ready for that. That would be,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
I feel like
am-
we're touching like the surface of what truly went down.
I imagine North Korea is not going to let them go for that reason.
Right, right.
And I
right.
imagine the kids can't say anything because their parents are still in North Korea. It's fascinating. What are your thoughts? Wow. But please stay safe, and I will see you guys in the next one.
That is crazy.
What happens when
Bada bing, bada boom.
There is this fascinating little
That is interesting.
Bada bing, bada boom.
September 14th, 2018. It's the middle of the night, around 3:30 in the morning. The police get a phone call from a young man. He's 27 years old, and he says that he'd like to report an incident of domestic violence, assault. This is the Gangnam police, and this is happening in Gangnam, South Korea. This is like the Beverly Hills, the Upper East Side of Seoul. He tells the officers that he just tried to break up with his girlfriend, and she beat him up, assaulted him. The Gangnam police show up to investigate, and when they get there, the man is further explaining, I just tried to break up with my girlfriend because her personality, if you know her, she's very passionate. That's the nicest way to put it. She just has this over-the-top, dramatic personality, explosive. Her temper is out of this world. She's quite hysterical. So I just try to break up with her, and she loses her mind, starts scratching him across the face, twisting his arm, assaulting him, screaming at him, "Who are you to break up with me?" The police look at the man, and he does have pretty deep scratches on his face. They're quite bloody, actually. There's one right above his eye that's bleeding into his eye. There's one on his forehead. The police ask, "Girlfriend's name?" Kuhara. Kuhara, the famous K-pop idol from one of the biggest girl groups of their time. This is a very delicate case, and they know this. The police start investigating, and there's just something that's not really adding up. If this man's story is true, why is there CCTV footage of Kuhara, the K-pop idol, on her knees, begging him to not do this to her? And why did he, the boyfriend, email Dispatch, a Korean tabloid similar to TMZ, twice during this so-called one-sided assault? And what does all of this have to do with the burning sun? A few months after this domestic violence incident, Kuhara will help reporters blow the lid off of the burning sun case. And less than a year later after that, she will be found dead in her apartment. This is part 2 of the burning sun case.
Wait. Where's part 1? Okay, hold on. I need part 1. Let's say part 1 here. I don't see it. Huh. Okay, I guess I can't find it. We're gonna keep going. I just wanted to find part 1. Okay, we'll just watch a different video then. Missing killer. We'll go this one.
There's always a reason to carry your aging 100-pound dog up the stairs. For this and every reason, there's Good Life.
Also, feel free to follow me. I'm gonna give it. They look like French tip toenails. We're gonna keep it that way. I've actually been looking to play that game. What's it called? Zenless Zone Zero. Looks interesting. I think I like the shark character.
There
I
is
wanna
a
draw
man
her.
laying unconscious in his living room. He's knocked out, face first, onto the carpet. He's not dead, at least not yet. Alyssa and Vanessa are standing over him. Alyssa believes this is what this man deserves. This is the only way. They have to kill him, or else. There really is no other option here. She reaches for the zip ties. She nudges his ankles together and starts zip tying them 3 times across, 3 separate zip ties. Vanessa, on the other hand, she does not want to do this. She's screaming in her head nonstop, "Stop, stop, this just needs to stop. This is taking things way too far." When Alyssa has a moment where she is no longer in control, it's like a brief second. Vanessa goes, grabs a pair of scissors, and cuts the man's zip ties off his ankles, essentially freeing him. Alyssa screaming, no. She rushes to grab more zip ties, continues zip tying his legs, his arms together. All the while, Vanessa, all she can do is just helplessly watch what's happening. She watches as Alyssa grabs a knife and plunges it into the man's neck, stabbing him so deeply that she nearly decapitates him. It's over now. They're gonna be safe. Alyssa drops the knife. There's blood dripping down her arms and her hands. The police would later report the victim, the man dead on the living room floor, to be Harold Sasko, and the killer to not be Vanessa, to not be Alyssa, but a single 19-year-old teenage girl named Sarah McLynn. This is the story of Sarah McLynn and how she violently murdered a man and was diagnosed with DID. And a lot of people believe that she should be free.
Damn.
We would like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support RAIN, the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization with a focus in prevention, bringing perpetrators to justice, and comprehensive care for survivors. They've created and currently operate the National SA Hotline, and all resources will be linked in the show notes. This episode's partnerships have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's growing team, and we would like to thank our listeners for your continued support as we work on our mission to be worthy advocates. As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com. Now, a couple of very important disclaimers before we start in today's case. There are mentions of CSA, SA, grooming, R-word, and self-exits. So please take care of yourself and watch at your own discretion. One more clear disclaimer I want to provide, very clear, is dissociative identity disorder, aka DID, is mentioned throughout this case. However, this episode is in no way a representation of the entire DID community, nor is it our objective to speak over people with a similar or that diagnosis. We did our best to consult and research only peer-reviewed research by medical professionals, and we pulled research from the DID community for their unique perspectives. It's also just like any other mental illness, depression, anxiety, to give you examples. People with DID are not inherently violent or dangerous in any way solely based off of a diagnosis. I would really hope that by this point we all know that. Anybody has the capacity to be a terrible human being, and from what I can tell, just anecdotally, typically those who struggle with their mental health, whether that be depression or DID or anything else, are much more vulnerable to becoming victims rather than perpetrators. A few small things to note: statements and letters have been condensed for time, and this is a case where a lot of interpersonal relationships are very important, but because the interpersonal relationships are not heavily documented or recorded, we really only have one version of events for that: Sarah's. Sarah does have an incentive to lie or alter the truth, considering she was on trial for murder. So use your best judgment on whether or not you believe she's trustworthy. I'm not here to sway you one way or another. Like with any case, I have no skin in the game. I will say, though, that when I was first researching this case, I watched a snapped episode on this case from Oxygen, and I thought I knew the story. Then we filed a Freedom of Information Act to get court documents, which were only partially approved because of an appeal. And I have to say that they were so revealing. It's about 1,500 pages that we combed through of transcripts, documents, and I did not see most of the information mentioned at all in the snapped episode, and I believe that episode came out a little biased because of that. So hopefully this will feel a little bit more like a comprehensive deep dive. So with that being said, let's get started. Dr. Hutchinson was called by a criminal defense attorney. He told her he's got a very puzzling case. A 19-year-old girl in prison for a brutal, heinous murder. She nearly decapitated her victim. Can you please evaluate her for us? Dr. Hutchinson is a psychologist. She works with offenders pretty often, and she has experience with the trial process, and obviously her intrigue is piqued. What do you mean? This is a puzzling case. Dr. Hutchinson agrees to a meeting. She goes to meet with the patient, the inmate, the defendant, literally about to go on trial for murder, 19-year-old Sarah McLynn. The first meeting lasted a little over an hour, and Dr. Hutchinson walks back out. The defense attorney, Sarah's attorney, walks up to her. What do you think? I mean, the doctor's got it now. Sarah is by far one of the most unusual people that she has ever interviewed. She says initially, she appears to be this sort of sweet, typical 20-year-old Midwest kid who is kind of lost in the world. Then we started talking about the actual murder, and all of a sudden, there was just a lack of distance. It's almost as if she wasn't describing what she was describing. To the point where after that first meeting, Dr. H, on the drive home, she kept shaking her head and kept saying to herself, what in the world was that? She said, I have never really witnessed anything quite like that. Dr. H likely could not put her finger on it the very first interaction, which I don't think anybody expected her to. Things like this take time. But to Dr. H, it did not feel like Sarah is just this cold-hearted, ruthless killer that can talk about a violent murder in a blunt sort of way. That's not the feeling she's getting. It's not, oh, she's so detached from the crime, she doesn't care, she has no remorse. It's not that. Regardless, Dr. H is so intrigued, she wants to be a part of this case. She starts going to build rapport with Sarah, meeting with her, getting to know her, analyzing her. The first few things that really stuck out to the doctor, the first being sometimes when Sarah describes certain situations or memories that she herself was a part of, she uses language that typically wouldn't be used. For example, if I'm standing in the living room and then I walk to the kitchen to grab water, I would say, oh, I felt really thirsty when I was standing in the living room, so I walked over to the kitchen and I grabbed a glass of water. That's what happened. But Sarah, and this is obviously an example, would say something along the lines of, we were in the living room, then I watched myself go to the kitchen to grab water. Interesting. It's almost like she's narrating her actions. Noted. Dr. H also noted that Sarah has these unexplainable gaps in her memory. She does not remember random chunks of her day, her week, most of her childhood. She has no memory of it. Not, oh, I don't remember anything particularly that stands out. Nothing spectacular happened, but just straight up no memories. Random blanks in the day that are unexplainable. She would be sitting in her bedroom and then all of a sudden she would be in the kitchen. She doesn't know what happened in between that time span. Dr. H goes to pull records from 2012. This would be 2 years before she's talking to Sarah.
Oh, this happened 2014.
Yes,
Okay.
and she pulls records from 2012, Sarah's medical records, before Sarah committed any sort of crimes. And she finds that even 2 years ago, Sarah had attempted self-exit. She was forced to report to a psychologist on a daily basis for a week. And she keeps mentioning, even 2 years ago, that she has gaps in her memory. There's time in her day that she just can't fill. The psychologist from 2 years ago writes in her notes, patient reports gaps in memory on almost daily basis, losses of time that she does not know what happened during those incidents. Interesting. Noted. Another interesting observation, Sarah would be talking to Dr. H about the events, and every now and then, so naturally that Sarah herself doesn't even seem to notice, it almost just comes out of her mouth so smoothly, but Dr. H would note it down. Sarah would use we and us pronouns when referring to herself. Now, she does identify with she, her pronouns. Which, side note, this is not like matter of her identifying with different pronouns. It was just a little bit different from that. Dr. H noted, something is interesting here. Then another observation. This one is harder to ignore. Sometimes Dr. H would come in to talk to Sarah, and it would just feel like a completely different person. Each time. Most of the time, Sarah, according to Dr. H, her detailed notes, appears quiet, soft-spoken, apologetic, often tearful and horrified at what's happened, what she's done, and deeply terrified and scared. And every person has a very specific tonality, body language, even the way you use your face muscles is very unique to your personality. So, side note, the way your face looks is, yes, based on your face structure, the way that your bones are set, but there's also face muscle usage. That's only part of it. The other part is actually your personality. So if this is your face, this is your bone structure, but you have a completely different personality than I do, we might look different.
Right.
Because when you're anxious, you hold tension in certain areas that make maybe your jaw more prominent. Maybe your lower lips come down because you're pulling down at them. Maybe there's a little bit more tension in certain areas of your cheeks. So the way that your personality is can reflect on your face.
Wow.
Sometimes her face would just look slightly different. And people have a baseline pitch, they have a baseline body posture, they have baseline hand gestures that they use when they're speaking. Obviously, there's subtle differences depending on environment or stress levels, but the minute that Dr. H believes she has a grasp on Sarah's mannerisms, she would come to see Sarah and everything feels different. It's like a completely different person. Sarah would go from being quiet, soft-spoken to being incredibly assertive, definitive, clear, sharp-spoken, unapologetic. There's not a single tear, no crying whatsoever, and almost kind of snappy. Dr. H has been a psychologist for a very long time, probably longer than we've been alive. She knows this is not a matter of a good day versus a bad day or getting more comfortable or even like a mood swing, which is very typical things that people go through.
Or like someone pretending to be someone.
This is something else. The doctor said, then I think it was one time I arrived and there was, again, what felt like a completely different person that met me. And I just asked, who are you? She responded, I'm Alyssa. Thank you for coming to talk to me. Is there a reason you're here today? Yes. There have been some fights in the jail, and I had to come out because Vanessa can't handle that. So I'm here.
What?
Dr. Hutchinson remembers saying, there are really a few more important things I would want to talk to Vanessa about today. Is it possible that I talk to Vanessa? No, it's not safe. I'm staying. Later, Dr. Hutchinson would ask about Sarah, if she could please speak to Sarah, the name on her patient chart. She was informed that Sarah was dead. Sarah had died at 16 years old. DID, dissociative identity disorder, a quick disclaimer before we get into this episode. Like I said, we try to gather as much peer-reviewed research as possible.
This reminds me of kind of like the character from Moon Knight. If you guys ever watched that, like two personalities. That's crazy.
From the medical community, as well as listen to the DID community and go on forums and try to pull from actual personal experience rather than people who think they know what they're talking about, right? And I will say that what we gathered is DID might be the most poorly represented psychological disorder in mainstream media. So we tried our best to separate that from all of our research. We also know that DID can present itself very differently person to person. So this should not be taken as a generalization of DID as a whole. So please, if there's anything you felt was not exactly explained correctly, or honestly even more insight that you have on this topic, I would be very grateful if you could leave that in the comments. DID, dissociative identity disorder, can loosely be defined as a disruption in one's identity by the existence of two or more distinct identity states in an individual. Which, okay, when I'm reading that definition, I'm like, yes, it makes sense, but I think this definition explains a lot more to me in terms of understanding. Someone without DID typically experiences a very stable, singular sense of identity. The identity evolves over time through experience, obviously, and of course we all have mood changes, periods of sadness, and personality evolution. But overall, there is this underlying feeling of being the same person that evolves and over time adapts. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would think that I'm not the same Stephanie from 10 years ago, but it's because I've evolved. That Stephanie from 10 years ago went from point A to point B, which is where I'm today, but it's still Stephanie. It's just changed. It's not a fixed identity that I have, but it's moving and developing, and it's just one singular identity going through motions. Whereas people with DID describe their perception of self as a bit different.
That's crazy.
And there's not one way, but some people have described it as seeing their identity as multiple identities, not limited to one. And it's not just, oh, today I'm happy, so this is my identity. Just completely different identities. It's like two souls in one body is the feeling. Others have described it as multiple identities coexisting in a vessel, like one body that has to be shared. So for someone like me who does not have DID, think of this analogy. I'm driving a bus. There is nobody else on this bus. I'm the only driver of this bus the whole time I'm driving. I have a very clear memory of everything that's happened while I was driving this bus. Obviously, the boring bits where I space out on the highway, it's not going to be strong in my memory. But there's very big moments where I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that while I was driving down the highway. Oh yes, and I was listening to this song while I was driving down the highway. But someone with DID has a very different bus driving experience. They might only remember half of the drive. They might have this feeling that they don't remember anything prior to suddenly I was sitting in the bus driver's seat and driving the bus, but they don't know how they got on the bus. Or sometimes they experience driving the bus from the outside, almost like they can see themselves driving the bus, but they don't actually feel what it's like to drive the bus.
Wow.
Also, another good way to describe it is someone without DID is you look in the mirror. That's how you perceive yourself. Someone with DID might perceive themselves almost like a CCTV camera. From the outside, not staring into the mirror, but watching their body stare into the mirror.
Okay.
That's because someone with DID, there is more than one identity on that bus. DID is categorized and characterized by the DSM-5 by having the presence of two or more separate identities or alters. There is not one singular identity. There is not one singular driver of the bus. There are multiple different alters that drive that bus. Now, there might be one or two alters that drive most of the time. Some alters barely ever drive, or other alters are fighting to try to drive, but they never get the chance to. But there's a lot of people on that bus, and they all feel like completely different identities. Like think of a full bus of different people, because they are. So what does that mean? I'm driving a bus alone. I see my hands on the wheel. I am in control of the bus nonstop. I have the AC blowing in my hair. I see the red lights. These are my personal experiences. I remember the whole bus drive. Someone with DID might experience that for 25% of the bus drive. The other 75%, they feel like they've been sharing the seat, helping the driver drive the bus. Or sometimes they feel like they're in the back of the bus, not paying attention to who's driving the bus, or they're watching from the front seat, trying to give backseat driving instructions to the driver, and they're getting frustrated because it's like, why aren't you listening to me? Or they can see themselves driving the bus, but almost from the view of a CCTV camera. And these identities and alters make up a system. Now, side note, they are referred to alters that make up a system. I think prior, maybe decades ago, they were called personalities. That doesn't apply because I think people without DID was like, oh, I also have different personalities when I'm at work. That's not what we're talking about. So instead of having one singular identity, there's many separate identities that make up a system. Each identity has a distinct personal history, self-image, and has completely separate responses to certain situations. They can even have different handwriting. Psychologists say it's actually pretty common for different alters within a system to have drastically different likes of music, food.
Okay, that is crazy. The different types of handwriting, like, that's next level. Like, even if I try to fake a handwriting, I still find myself doing certain characteristics that I do with my regular handwriting. So to fake a handwriting will be very inconsistent, unless you like practice it on purpose. But having a different type of handwriting, we have a different type of alter, what she called it. That is intense and crazy. Kind of scary crazy, to be honest.
Preferences, political views, even the way that they use that body, they say, is different. And I think that maybe if you don't know anyone with DID, some psychiatrists were saying you might have a tendency to be like, wait, that doesn't make sense, right? But when you see someone switch between alters, you see their tone, their body language, the way they use their face also changes.
Yeah.
I don't want to get it too complicated, but just know that there are multiple alters that make up a system. And when we say fronting, I'm talking about me talking about the case, not as someone with DID. I don't want to act like I'm representing that community. But when it's referred to as fronting, is that alter is in control of the body. And sometimes the other alters have no idea what's happened when that alter is in control.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes they do. That's called co-consciousness. Sometimes they can actually have like inner monologue between the different alters and they can fill each other in. Or they have systems where a lot of people with DID have
This is Moon Knight
specific apps
vibes.
where they write down, hey, this is what I did as this alter. And then the next alter that comes to front, they can see what's happened so far. So they're not completely out of the loop. But that is why recurrent amnesia is typically a big diagnostic point that psychologists tend to focus on in terms of diagnosing someone with DID. There may be random slots of missing time, or at least that's what it feels like. Giant gaps in memory, chunks of childhood times just missing from your memory. Or you see pictures of your wedding and you know you were there. You see it in the picture. You're there. That's you. Obviously, you're getting married, but you have zero memory of your wedding. Or you might be watching a video, eating a bowl of cereal, and then suddenly, in the blink of an eye, you look up and you're in bed reading a book and you have no idea what just happened. It does seem like there are people out there in this world that either don't take DID seriously or think that it cannot be real, which is obviously very ignorant. And yes, there have been instances of people faking DID, typically for social media fame, but there's also people faking terminal illness for social media fame. That does not make terminal illness fake. If you take brain scans of people with DID, you'll see that oftentimes they even have blood flow patterns that are different from people who do not have DID.
Really?
One study showed that people with DID also tended to have a smaller hippocampus, which is the part of your brain that helps you form memories. And it's not like, oh, the smaller your hippocampus, the more likely you are to get DID. It seems more like after the fact.
Yeah.
And you'll see why. So we kind of know what DID is, but how does DID develop? It's generally agreed upon in the scientific community that DID is typically formed during childhood as a protective mechanism against trauma. I think Dr. Mike Lloyd puts it a lot better than I do, but he says, and this is a paraphrase, every single one of us has a different tolerance for trauma or life stress. So visualize it. Think of it as a glass cup. Your resilience to trauma is an empty glass cup. And all of us are going to have different size cups. Some people are naturally more resilient than others. Typically, when you're younger, your cup is going to be very small. As you get older, your cup grows, or at least it should, as an example. So if you're an adult with a great, well-adjusted life and support system, you likely have a great deal of resilience and you've got a big, empty glass cup. Now think of trauma as a jug of water. So every time someone experiences trauma, you splash some water in there. It goes into the glass cup. And if you have a fairly empty cup, one splash of water is going to do nothing. It's just going to be a sip of water sitting at the bottom of your cup. It's not going to be good. You want to get it out, but you have so much room in that cup to learn how to cope, manage, grow. You have space in that cup to think and process the trauma. You can actually pour the trauma water out because you've put it in the cup, experienced it, processed it, and now you're done with it. It's no longer taking up all your brain space. That's for a healthy adult. When you're a child, every amount of trauma, every splash feels like it's going to overwhelm the cup because you probably just have a shot glass. The cup is so small. Children do not have strong coping mechanisms to deal with trauma. Even if there is room in that tiny little shot glass, likely the child does not know how to manage that water that goes in. But that's why you have parents or adults in your life. They will take your shot glass and actually pour it into their cup. They take your trauma out of them. They see trauma, they take it out. They try to lighten, constantly drain the child's trauma cup. But what if that child does not have an adult or anyone in their life that can take away their trauma? Or the trauma, it's not just a little splash, it's a giant splash. Or sometimes it's a constant trickling of water that never ends, like an open faucet, just constantly pouring more water. It doesn't matter if someone once in a while tries to dump the glass, there's just new water coming in. whether it's parental neglect, physical or sexual violence, high stressors that the child has. It is nonstop. Now, nobody's taking any water out. Eventually, that cup is going to overflow. Where does overflowing trauma go? It doesn't just disappear. Our brains don't work like that, where it's like, oh, you know what? I can't handle the trauma, so it's just not there anymore. It's still there. It just does not evaporate. So what does that child's incredibly powerful, desperate, but also very resilient brain do? They create new glasses to hold the trauma, additional vessels to hold more trauma, altars. Think of the cup as new altars. Sometimes those new glasses are clear and people can see, they themselves can see, perhaps therapists can even see how much water and trauma is in some of those glasses. Other times, the new glasses that they have are paper. You can't even see what's in there. They themselves can't even see what's in there or how much is in there. And as the child grows or as more trauma takes place, they might have more glasses that are required to contain the trauma. So that's why you'll see that with people with DID, even later down the road, they might have new alters emerge. And it's usually because they need more glasses.
Wow.
And those glasses make up a system, multiple identities in one body. And side note, with altars, it does seem common that there are specific altars that are usually made out of paper, the ones that you cannot see through, and they hold most of the trauma. So that's why the DID community said, you'll actually see a lot of people with DID say, that doesn't make sense because I've never experienced childhood trauma. And then they start reflecting, they start going through therapy, and they realize, oh, actually this happened to me. And there are witnesses from my childhood that are like, yeah, that's crazy because that did happen to you.
Wow.
And they just didn't realize it. So they have trauma holding altars.
So it's all like your brain just trying to protect you.
Yes.
Like
And
Moon
that's where
Knight.
the
Holy
disassociative
crap.
also comes in. It does feel like it didn't happen to
Oh,
me.
no.
It's almost like you're protecting yourself.
Sorry, I
Like,
just saw
can't handle
a
this
crazy
emotion, so it didn't happen
text
to me.
message.
But I can't just get rid
1
of the
second.
trauma.
That's crazy.
So I'm just looking for a different way to cope. It is called a disorder, but a lot of psychologists say it's more like a protective mechanism that develops in the brain. Another thing to note is that DID is not something that needs to be healed. A lot of people will say, oh, you need to learn to reintegrate yourself as an adult, go back to one identity, but that's not really necessary. That would imply that someone with DID is broken, which that's not the case. I think every person on the planet can use some healing, but you get it. And this part is important, but when talking to someone with DID, from what we've researched, it is preferred that we use the pronouns of the fronting alter. Someone who is part of a system of alters said, if you're talking about me, as in me, the person sat in front of you, talking to you, then it's me, one person, and I identify as, and then they would give their pronouns. So we will stay with how Sarah's doctors refer to her, which is Sarah, and the pronouns she uses are she, her. Now, side note, most of the time people with DID will refer to themselves as we instead of I, which is why I wanted to make sure that there's no confusion about the pronouns. And one more thing to note, just because there are different identities working in a system that has completely different likes and dislikes, it is nothing like the movie Split, which is about a homicidal person who happens to have DID, and that's like the whole punchline, right? People with DID do not have bad, evil alters that are trying to front and commit heinous crimes. Alters have different personalities, but the reason that a new alter comes about is generally for protection. It's never like, oh, I just have like a serial killer alter. That is crazy. That is unhinged. That is movie. That is crazy. Usually alters are created again to protect someone. So sure, there can be bad people with DID, and there's also bad people who don't have DID. Just statistically speaking, people with DID are no more likely to commit crimes than the general population, and 70% of people with DID have attempted self-exit at one point in their lives. They're likely to be victims of crime more than anything.
Yeah, because they're traumatized when they were young. Yeah.
And even in today's case, there is a lot more nuance. So just follow me there. Sarah has a habit. Well, she did. She had a habit of stealing her dad's keys before he went to work. This is when she's a kid. Sarah's dad was almost always running
Don't
late
all
because
kids
of Sarah,
do that?
which is kind of cute
Okay, she's gonna explain why. Okay.
at first, but over time, it's just very inconvenient. It's part of the daily routine. Where are my keys? Hurry, go find daddy's keys. Daddy's gonna get fired. But now that Sarah's older, both of Sarah's parents they're divorced, and she no longer lives in the family home. But they just think of that moment. When they're asked, what do you remember most about Sarah's childhood? They would both respond, oh, she used to do this thing where she would hide her dad's keys. She's like daddy's little girl. And they would smile, and it's like this cute little memory, one of the happiest memories they have as a kid. And Sarah must have loved her dad. That is the messaging. She loved him so much, she never wanted him to leave the house.
So both mom and dad is sharing this story, saying
Yes.
how much Sarah loved her dad.
To Sarah's psychologist.
Oh, okay.
And Sarah's psychologist was like, okay, that's very interesting, because I feel like Sarah has a lot of complex feelings about her parents. And Sarah clearly remembers things very differently. As a child, Sarah actually had a lot of interesting habits. She didn't like wearing shoes. She likes to play outside. And most unique and potentially alarming one is she had this habit where she would run outside to play with her friends. And she would come back home and everyone is like, what are you doing? Where did the rest of your clothes go? She would just come back home in nothing but her underwear.
What?
And nobody looked into it. They just thought, Sarah's such a tomboy. She doesn't
Like
like
how
wearing
old
clothes.
was she?
Not even elementary school, maybe like 4 or 5. And she really, really, really hated their next door neighbor. Hated him.
Yeah,
But
that's a
all I
red
knew is
flag
I
right
think
there.
Everyone in the neighborhood hated this guy, despised this guy.
That's a red flag right there. Why would you not look into that? I don't know.
He's old, he's crabby, he has dementia, and he would do this thing where he would just shoot squirrels with BB guns. Sometimes the BB gun pellets would ricochet off and hit other things. Sometimes he would hit neighbors' cars parked on the street while he's attempting to hit a squirrel with a BB gun, which I imagine is happening frequently considering his age and deteriorating eyesight. He's hitting random things and people. He is overall probably the worst neighbor of the year. Nobody even knows why he's torturing squirrels in the neighborhood. He's not exactly the type of person you can ask that question to. You feel like you're next. He's going to shoot you next. They keep an eye out for him, and he keeps an eye out for little Sarah. Allegedly, he would make Sarah watch him shoot a squirrel with a BB gun, walk over, grab that squirrel, still half alive, and skin the squirrel alive using a knife.
What a weirdo.
Then he would kill the squirrel in front of her face, just after literally ripping and peeling its skin off in front of this, 5-year-old girl. He would scream at her, if you try to run or if you look away, this is going to be you next. If you
Right now, children in Gaza worry about when they'll
That's
eat next.
crazy.
Hunger doesn't stop.
anything, this is going to be you. And when he's done killing a squirrel in front of her, he would hold Sarah down, shove the mutilated squirrel in her face, and molest her. It's stated that he essayed her orally and digitally, and then he fully essayed her by inserting gardening tools into her. The very first time it happened, Sarah runs all the way home screaming, yelling. She slams open the front door. She doesn't even know how to describe what happened to her. I believe she was young to the point where she knows this is bad, painful, evil, terrifying, but I don't think that she can put it into words. Like, I don't think she understands her body like that even, or what this action is. She has no idea. She just knows she hated it. She runs inside and her mom is on the phone and she screams at her loud daughter, "You're making too much fuss. Go to your room." Maybe it was Sarah's choice to take off her clothes while playing outside. Maybe it wasn't, but had someone just looked into it, they would have realized that the demented neighbor, Doc, that's what they called him, is more than just demented. Later, Sarah's psychologist would ask, when did the neighbor assault you? At night, in the mornings, before school, after? Sarah responded, anytime my dad wasn't home. So that's why she hid his keys, in hopes that he would stay home. Sarah's psychologist firmly believes this is the childhood trauma that Sarah's brain could not handle and protected her by creating new alters.
Oh my God.
Police are called to do a welfare check on a 19-year-old girl named Sarah McLynn. They show up at the house in question that she's apparently staying at. It's not her mom's house, it's not her dad's house, it's not even a relative's house. It's just a small little suburban house in Kansas. The police initially tried knocking on the front door, nothing.
I'm not knocking anybody or their parenting styles, but if you have kids, you should know their whereabouts where there are especially young kids. I know everyone likes to think, no, the neighborhood's safe and all that stuff, but you don't know people. Like, I'd rather be accused of being a non-trusting person than being super trustful of everybody and letting your kids roam around and stuff like this happens. Like, I don't know. Sorry that happened to us. Crazy.
They tried the back door. Nothing. It's a little unclear if this was their second welfare check or if there was some reason that they felt that they needed to break into the house. I'm sure they've got a list of reasons, but the police forced their way into the home, through the door, through the kitchen. They kick it in and they step right into the house and they're like, we were right. The whole place is ransacked. If you were to go into the bedrooms, you would see dressers are rummaged through, bed sheets are ripped off the bed, pictures are ripped out of the picture frames. But two things would stand out the most. On the wall, written in big red letters, is a word. Like, imagine just spray painting inside the house. It's weird. And right underneath that is a dead man, laying in a pool of his own blood. Zip ties around his wrist, zip ties around his ankle. Curiously, there are cut zip ties next to him and a pair of scissors next to his foot. So it seems like someone zip tied him and then cut it and then re-zip tied him for whatever reason. The police look at the man, then they look at the words on the wall, and they realize that the words on the wall were written using this man's blood. And the words read, and it's kind of hard, FREEDOM. Freedom? The most popular item at CiCi's Pizzas, it's a pizza chain, is not actually a pizza. It's their cinnamon rolls. It's also not the most popular pizza chain in the world, but it is, or at least it was, one of the only places in the entire town that would hire 15-year-olds and give them a part-time job after school. And on top of that, the owner, Harold Sasko, so he's the owner of 3 CiCi's Pizza franchises. He's not like the owner of the CiCi's Pizza franchise company. He just owns 3 locations. And he would hire 15-year-olds, and he's really cool. Harold is interesting. People say he's a cool boss. He lets the high schoolers call him Hal, and instead of talking to them like they're irresponsible, incapable, incompetent 15-year-olds, which is usually how these kids feel like adults talk to them, he talks to them like they're his age, like they're also adults. He'll even randomly talk to them or teach them about business and the struggles of running a franchisee location. He kind of feels more like a business mentor than a boss. And Harold could just see from a mile away that Sarah McLynn is hurting. She's got scars on her arms, on her wrists that are in various stages of healing. She just seems lonely, like she doesn't have anyone. She's also a little awkward. She was homeschooled as a kid, which, side note, her homeschooling curriculum was just so questionable. Apparently, her daily routine was to read classic literature novels and then watch the movie. But regardless, Sarah was homeschooled, and it resulted in her not really knowing how to make friends. She was awkward. Even when she does eventually go back to public school, it was just a little too late. Usually, Sarah keeps to herself, keeps away from people, and people keep away from her. Except for Harold. He just feels like she needs help, and he wants to help her.
Does she work for him? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, so she's one of the employees.
And he's her boss, and he's also 33 years older than her. So technically old enough to be her dad. And he tells her, I can help you get on your feet. I can see that you're really struggling. And when you're ready, I can help you get your life together. I can help you learn how to run a business, kind of like a dad or a mentor, like a father figure. You can even move in with me.
What?
Harold has been divorced 4 or 5 times. Right now, he lives alone. He has got a spare room she could use. It's completely up to her.
How old is she at this point?
17.
Okay, and he's 33 years older, so he's 50?
Yes.
Okay.
He was going to show me how to run businesses so I could eventually run a business of my own. I really looked at him as a mentor. Like, I looked up to him. Like, none of my family had businesses or anything like that. Like, I just admired that, and I wanted to learn from that.
She does not know that her new mentor, Harold, has downloaded hundreds of videos of violent, explicit content onto his phone and visits X-rated websites that feature children, teens, and bestiality. At least 20 times he visited a website that featured men fondling or having intimate relations with women that appear to be asleep. Sarah did not know this at the time. Instead, she had his name saved on her phone under the contact Dad. But dads don't really do drugs with their daughters, do they? According to Sarah, right after moving in, Harold was supplying her and giving her unrestricted access to whatever drugs she wanted. Weed, vodka, cocaine, ecstasy, which there seems to be other witnesses that have stated Harold was buying drugs, mainly weed and black market prescription painkillers. Allegedly. They said he talked about it. They never saw it happen, but he talked about it. But if it's true that he is buying drugs and giving it to Sarah, it defeats the whole purpose of her moving in to begin with, because he said it was to make sure that she got clean and worked on her future. Sarah said after moving in with Harold, she might have actually started doing more drugs. This is according to Sarah. She said she was drinking almost on a nightly basis. She's having 7 shots of vodka at a time, 7 drinks at a time. She would smoke weed almost every single day, and a few times a week she would take super strong prescription painkillers, which, yeah, from the outside, we're confused. We're alarmed. But Sarah, she's 17. She's having what she thinks at the time is a really good time. 1 month into Sarah's move into Harold's house, Sarah shows up with a whole brand new nose. She got a nose job. Sarah's sister, Ashley, is kind of confused. Maybe because a nose job is like $6,000. How on earth did you pay for it? But she also knows that Sarah has complained about how she hates her nose, how ugly it made her feel, and how ashamed she was of it. And Sarah tells her sister, well, Harold told me that if I feel insecure, he can help me not feel insecure. I'm going to pay him back, though. He's just fronting me the money.
That's crazy.
Sarah feels really lucky. I mean, not only that, this sweet man is paying for her very expensive nose job. I mean, obviously she's gonna pay him back. It's more like a loan, but he really didn't even have to do that for her. Who loans someone $6,000 so casually? I don't think many people would do that. For Sarah, even just the fact that he thought of it and offered it to her, she said it felt like, wow, I finally have an adult that sees what I really need and will help me. It's not a free ride, but somebody is really helping me and they care about me. It's that type of feeling.
6,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And for a 17-year-old, it probably feels like $6 million. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you can't even fathom that amount of money. And that must mean like the world for her to receive that.
But
right?
also think about that later, because imagine
Exactly.
someone tells you, you need to pay me $6,000 at 17.
Yeah.
I would be so overwhelmed.
She probably feels like she owes him
Her life.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Sarah's so happy with this newfound parental figure that she trusts. She doesn't even see what people see from the outside, which is, no, this is definitely a little bit strange. I don't even think most parents would give their 17-year-old a nose job. Sarah's older sister, Ashley, allegedly starts picking up on it just a little bit. Ashley knows that her sister, Sarah, is moving in with her boss, Harold. She thinks, yeah, it's weird. It's strange. But maybe it's for the best. The two of them, Sarah and Ashley, they never really grew up with strong parental figures. Maybe this is
where are the parents?
But there are weird things. Like the fact that ever since Sarah moved in with Harold, she's had her nose job, but also butt implants.
What?
Not that Ashley is judging or anything, but it just doesn't sound like her sister. Ashley was under the impression that both of them never wanted to get body augmentation surgeries. And also, she's so young. And Sarah can't stop talking about the end of the world, political annihilation through war. Like, she's becoming a doomsday prepper.
How is she getting...
I mean, there are some really unstable nuclear power plants right now, and they're on the cusp of exploding.
Which doctor allowed this?
It would be in everyone's best interest to look for bunker locations. Places like Utah, Montana are good. They're far away enough from any of the blast sites that it should feel safe enough. Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a friend in Utah. They say it's nice.
Is the older sister or younger sister?
Older sister. Okay. Sarah and Ashley would be out grabbing coffee or food, and Sarah would just keep going on and on about how they need to make go bags filled with dry food that's going to keep them safe and alive for a few days. They're buying survival knives, her and Harold. Survival skills are going to be more important now than ever, because think about it. Sure, you can do things on the computer, but what if computers are shut down? How are you going to get food if there's no grocery stores? Could I get a name for the order? Sarah would turn, Vanessa. Ashley's thinking, okay, whoa, this is a little strange. Sarah just called herself Vanessa, but maybe she doesn't like giving her real name to strangers.
So you're saying this is the sister's first time hearing Vanessa?
Yes, and she thought it was a little odd. And then sometimes she stated that Harold would even call Sarah Vanessa. But it was just weird. She didn't ask about it. She didn't think too much into it, but it was just odd.
She thought it was just a fake name.
Yeah. Regardless, before Ashley can ask about it, Sarah would go on another tangent about volcanoes, another newfound obsession since she moved in with Harold. So yeah, things are a little bit strange, but as long as Sarah has someone and somewhere to make her feel safe, which she never had in her childhood, maybe Ashley can support it. Sarah grew up in this really dysfunctional family. I mean, obviously, so did Ashley. She's got Ashley, then it's Sarah, and then they have 3 younger brothers, all of whom were adopted, which apparently, according to Sarah, Sarah's mom would have these phases in her life, implying that her mom went through an adoption phase where she either thought that's what she wanted to do or thought it was cool or something. I don't know. It's just something that she would tell her psychologist later. Their mom adopts 3 boys, and according to Sarah, when they were no longer cute, her mom just decides the phase is over, decides she doesn't really want to be a mom anymore, leaving both Ashley and Sarah responsible for the care of the boys, and it's obviously not easy. One of the brothers has fetal alcohol syndrome, and 2 of the other brothers both have ADD. The girls are left to raise their...
This is why the role of being a parent is a very serious role and shouldn't be taken lightly. Parents have such influence and power over their kids that bad parents just mess up kids. It's so sad. I don't know. I don't know. It's crazy.
3 brothers, and all they remember growing up about their mom is she was always on the phone. Her phone is glued to the side of her face, talking to her friends. She just always seemed to be way more concerned with the opinion of her friends and what they think about their children than her actual children. She wasn't really maternal either. If the kids had a problem or wanted comfort or support or something, she was either A, not there to provide it, or B, usually her method of support was along the lines of, hey, suck it up, stop whining, life is hard, okay? The world is harsh, so go to your room. Which, fine, maybe dad is better? Sarah's dad is described by Sarah as being, quote, very emotional. She said he's very depressed and has a very weak personality that lets both of his wives control him. She also thinks that he has an alcohol problem. He would constantly be out till 5 in the morning. The girls would be up all night wondering if he's going to be okay, if he's in trouble, if he's even alive, if he's abandoning them. But they can't go talk to their mom about it since she's on the phone and sent them to their rooms. They both always felt like their parents only ever did what was most convenient for them. They did not care about their kids. Then they divorced. Sarah's only 15 when it happened. It's rough. There's nonstop fighting in the house. Both parents get new partners and the kids feel even more abandoned. At one point, Sarah's mom would put the boys to bed, then leave to spend the rest of the night at her new partner's place, just leaving the kids. So it's safe to say that there really were no strong parental figures in their life, no sort of guidance. They could sneak out, skip school, get high. It didn't seem like anybody cared or anything.
Too much freedom is not good.
Which is maybe why Ashley thought, yeah, Harold is weird, but maybe he could be good for Sarah. When Ashley meets Harold, he seems nice enough. He talks about how he's Christian, and Sarah told her that he was going to teach her how to start a business, help her through school, which is super sweet. And everything seems super normal, except Harold mentions to Ashley that her daughter, Ashley has a daughter, so this is Sarah's niece. Sarah's very young niece is more than welcome to stay at his house if Ashley ever needs to get away and get some time alone.
Oh my God.
Ashley thinks the offer is, quote, weird and a little creepy, but she tries to brush it off. He's probably just saying that. Nobody actually wants to babysit, right? She's trying to be supportive of her sister and her journey. But there's a few things that you really cannot explain away. One time, Ashley's hanging out with Sarah. Harold is out of town in Florida. Sarah gets a text message from Harold, and it's something about how sunburnt he's getting on vacation, which is normal enough. But this is the picture that he sends. It looks like a bathroom mirror selfie. He is very sunburned. He looks like a cooked red lobster. And you can't see any intimate areas. He's shirtless, but you can also tell that he's not wearing pants and he's not wearing underwear.
So it's like a top bare chest selfie?
Yes, but he's showing enough of the waistband area that it's implied he's not wearing anything.
So he took that photo naked.
Yes. which it's cropped. Like I said, you can't see his parts, but it's just a very odd thing to send someone that you call your stepdaughter. If I received this picture from my father or a stepfather, if I had one, I would genuinely be terrified. I would ask, did you mean to send this to somebody else? Because I need to throw my phone away now. This doesn't make it, this is not a normal father-daughter relationship photo.
Yeah, he's testing the waters.
It just rubs Ashley the wrong way. Enough so that the next time Ashley visits Sarah at the house, she makes sure to be a little bit more observant, and she notices two things. From her perspective, it seems that her sister is high on cocaine. And Harold is looking at her sister in a very creepy way. Ashley is so tired that night, but she refuses to fall asleep because something in her gut is telling her to stay awake, be alert, and keep an eye out on her sister, which is exactly what she ends up doing. But what about all the other nights that she's not there? She can't stay awake and sleep over every night. She's got kids. She has obligations. She has a job. After that incident, Ashley goes to their mom and tells her, look, we got to do something about Sarah. Sarah's not in a good situation right now. She needs help. But their mom would more or less tell her, shh, we can pray for her. She didn't ask for any more specifics on like, hey, what's happening to Sarah? Is she okay? Who is she with? Didn't really ask much. It's unclear if Sarah picked up on all these weird little instances or not. I would imagine not. And by the time she finally did pick up on something, it'd be too late. One day, Sarah is sitting on the couch with Harold, and she's got him in her phone contacts as dad. And he tells her, I have feelings for you. I want to go on a date with you. Which is the last thing Sarah would ever want. She genuinely sees him as a dad. She tries to reject him as nicely as she can, but she's confused that he would even ask such a thing or even feel such a thing.
Because he had confessed to me something that he was in love with me or something one time, and I just quickly shut it down and said, I really do, see you as a father and like a mentor and a friend, and I did. And it just, I was very just crushed the first time that happened, and I just felt completely helpless at that point.
But ever since that conversation, things start changing around this house. The energy is just different. The dynamic is shifting. When Sarah's sitting there watching TV, he would come up behind her, sit really close to her, put his arms around her, and she could see or feel that he's getting an erection. And it's starting to make